All right, it's podcast time, everybody. This is Billy Bye, third taping today. Apparently my dog's going ape shit. He hasn't made an appearance in a while, so I guess we'll let that slide. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to our website, almostinagreement.com. I've got the job description sheet up and posted and still being worked on, so it's not 100%. And I started working on the 22 voters guide last night. And I'll open that page up so you guys can check that out. It's basically a breakdown of who's running for what seat. If I've done an episode with them, it'll link to the show that I've done with them or their own website or Facebook page for their own campaign. I'm not going to try to tell you who they are. I'm going to let them tell you themselves. So that's how that's going to work. Give us a shout on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. And Instagram, I guess we do have an Instagram account now. We've talked about that. So anyway, we're almost in agreement. Podcast providers. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Subscribe there and give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends about us. Candidates. Lots and lots of stuff. And the great Eric Lutton was here earlier today, and he's fantastic. That guy is awesome. Anyway, we'll talk about that among other things. Sam and I in the room, and Rowdy's going to make his presence known if he hasn't already. Well, what up, Sam Alamo?
What the fuck is up?
Oh man, it was like I said, it's a crazy day. I had Vivian Shipe and Eric Lutton this afternoon, and then a couple-hour break, and now we're here. And then I did Devin Driscoll earlier this week, as well as Dominique Oakley, JJ rescheduled, and Christy rescheduled. So we're still working on that one. I did. Oh, this was interesting. So there was a gentleman who, and this might be breaking news, I don't know. I asked him if he's announced it to the public yet, but there was an independent running for mayor. His name was Greg Mills, I believe. Yeah, Greg Mills running as independent for mayor. I'd emailed him among a ton of other people. I was emailing, messaging, trying to get everybody scheduled. And I emailed him yesterday, to which he emailed me back that... to please note that I will not be running for the county mayor on this year's ballot. I spent a few weeks exploring this option and decided to pursue a different course of action. So I don't know if that's breaking news, if anybody even cares, but Greg Mills has decided to pull from the race. He's already turned his petition in, but there's a 1-week grace period that starts. Petitions are due the 17th, so you have till noon on the 24th to basically pull your petition out of conversation.
All right. I doubt that's breaking news. But.
I don't know. It might be, because as far as he might have told friends and family, but as far as anybody watching the grand scheme, they probably didn't even know that he was really running.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah,
right.
Like I doubt it was big news that he applied the petition,
right?
Let alone rescinded the petition.
Yeah, because I was talking to Matt Shears about it, and it's like, yeah, nobody knows who this Greg Mills guy is. On whether, because this is how, Daniel and Matt look at it, is they see an independent on this race. It's like, well, is it a more left-leaning independent or a more right-leaning independent?
Right.
Whose of our votes are they going to steal?
Right.
And so it sounds to me, in the little bit of conversation through a couple of emails now with him, that I don't know. It doesn't really, I don't get a strong impression of if he's left or right-leaning. He's definitely doesn't like the two-party system. I got that out of him at least. And I said, hey, I don't like that either. You should come on the show. We'll talk about it. But, I was like, let's wait for April or May or something like that. I got too many to squeeze in to do one that I know isn't part of what we're working on right now. It's not an insult, but it just is.
I wonder if he's looking at it. Well, he would have to put in a petition, I guess, this week or whatever, if he was reconsidering a different position.
Right, I'm curious. I don't know how that works. If you can pull two, can you pull two different petitions? Because you have two active petitions, or can you only have one active petition?
That's a Chris question.
That's a Chris question. Indeed, it is. I need to have him on the show. I'm sure I'll get him on the show at least. Probably wait for after the primaries. He'll be too busy trying to deal with getting all these different precincts set up for all their primaries and all these different ballots he has to produce.
Yeah. Hope you're enjoying your run if you're listening.
Yeah.
Keep it up. You can do it.
Keep it up, Chris.
Push through the pain.
We believe in you.
Push through the pain.
Well, he's been basketball or something like that. He's been a bunch of his posts recently. I think it's his daughter's on basketball team.
saw some little story blurb about the MLB Lockout. I guess maybe they just rescinded another offer, the Players Association.
I mean, I really I wasn't fainting.
I don't even know what was really going on. I'm like, oh, we're going into a lockout. Like, I didn't know how it started. It sounded like it was just like the end of a contract, so it was time for like contract negotiations.
The collective bargaining had expired basically, and instead of automatically going to continue it,
they said we want to renegotiate.
They're like, we need to renegotiate this, and I guess it's the players presented their side of it, or the ownership presented their side of it, and the players said no, and so it immediately went into this lockout. So I guess since the owner said no, it's a lockout instead of the players saying no on a new agreement so far. I mean, and again, it wasn't last week when we were talking about it. It wasn't feigned interest for AC's sake, so we could talk about baseball because he likes baseball. But at the same time, it was a little bit just kind of like I don't care per se about the complexities of the back of the house of baseball. I just don't. That doesn't interest me. I don't like, and I respect that for AC's sake. He does, but like I don't care about double and triple and single A baseball. I don't care about the development programs that they have in place. I want to see the game.
Right.
And it's not to say that those things don't exist or don't need to exist or shouldn't exist or they need to change or not change. I just don't care about them. It's the same thing with football with me. I like football a lot, but I am not the type where, like, you get some of these football people that really, like, super sports fans, they're talking about high school kids in rural Mississippi. Or 5-star recruits that got picked up or got signed with USC or something like that, and it's like that means something, which it does, but not to me. You know, like for me, a player barely exists in college ball. You don't really exist in football to me until you're in pro ball. Not to say that the other parts aren't important to the progress, but it's just not that important to me. Oh, you had mentioned you texted the group last week. Or
yeah.
I think was it Sunday after we did the show?
I don't know. What was it?
The camera stuff?
The camera. Oh.
Yeah. There was you shared a news article from Nashville.
Yeah, it looks like Nashville, I guess, just approved it.
Apparently Knoxville has had them for almost a year. It was actually like it just happened to be on the news.
They've had those stationary cameras. I know we talked about before about them being in the cruisers.
Yeah, no, they've had them apparently for about a year, up and working, and so they found here it is, 97 stolen vehicles they found using it. WBR license plate readers helping KPD solve crimes and locate missing people. The cameras first installed in May of 21. They've recovered 14 guns, 97 vehicles, lots of drugs, and more than $15,000.
Because I think in the one article that I sent, I'm trying to remember, they said there was a kind of debate on when it could be accessed, and I thought there had to be certain access. It wasn't like all the time scanning all the cars all the time.
Well, it's just like that's the thing.
I guess if someone came in and said, "Hey, we're looking for a specific car that was on this road in this 2-day time period that we're looking for," I guess they would be given access to it.
Right. So I watched the news story on it, and they just said his name. Lieutenant McCarter was on there talking to him about it, and I mean, they not him, but the news thing explains that they take pictures of license plates, and he says, "Well, we only use it for whatever. We're not tracking and keeping data." And it's like, I don't believe you. Sorry. You can say that, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. Because to me it doesn't sound like they're passive. They're active. And what it explains in the way it's explained in the news thing is that, so my car gets stolen. I report my car stolen, either because I actually know the license plate number through registration. We figure out what my license plate number is. They put that in the system. And then if any of the cameras see that license plate, it alerts them.
Right.
So it's not necessarily...
It's like, we've got a marker at this camera on this day, and we've got a marker at this camera on this day.
Right. And so we know that car, this camera at this location picked it up at this time.
Right.
We know the car's over there. But the only way that works is if the camera's always on. You can't just turn the camera on.
Right.
So the cameras are always on, always taking pictures, always logging that data. Now, the system may only allow an officer to go in there and pull specific plate data when he has a reason to look for a plate.
Right.
You know, like if I were just some, you know, beat cop, I couldn't walk in and search him for, you know, like my ex's license plate.
Right.
Well, I guess I could. I couldn't search for my ex as a person, but if I had her plate number, I could put it in, and the way it reads to me is that the machine will kick it out if you ask for a plate number. And so that the machine only does what it's asked to do, but the machine is always tracking.
Right.
Is the way it reads to me. And so I think that's gross. I bitched at lawyer
Jamie
about it.
I don't know if it's necessarily tracking, but it's always on.
It's always on, and it's when it's I guess it could take the picture, and if it's not actively being looked for, it would delete the picture and delete the data that goes along the picture. But I just don't buy it. That might be the idea, but I just don't believe that that's what they do. It just doesn't seem into character for how the police operate with things like those.
What do you think they're for?
I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying they're not using it for what they're saying for, but I'm not. I don't believe that they're not. That they don't like the benefit of the access to that information.
So honestly, I don't know if it got passed or if they were just discussing it. I remember last year, the House or State House or Senate was talking about that, and they were putting it in terms of ones that were on like the side of the highway. And I think and that bill or whatever they were discussing, I think it said they held that data for 30 days. And
right.
they put it in reference to, you know, Amber Alerts and things like that.
I would go a step further and to say that, okay, maybe because the way the law is written, that KPD can only have access to it for 30 days. They store that data, and then after 30 days, they flush. So today's the 4th? So the 5th of January, pictures that were taken on the 5th of January are now starting to be auto-deleted, and then tomorrow, the 6th of January, and then the day after, the 7th of January, will start happening. I can believe that access from KPD's end, but I also think that if you're the company doing it, like I had Eric Lutton in today. Right, and so Eric Lutton was telling me about how, I feel kind of bad, not really because he's not running against anybody, but, we didn't talk campaign barely at all. Because there's no real reason to, and there's so much cool, interesting stuff that he knows so much cool, interesting stuff about. Right. I'd rather talk about that. Right. And so we were talking about there was this plan, and it's in action, and they're building it to have this virtual courtroom at the Knox County Detention Center. And so what they're trying to do, what the plan is that you get arrested for something, you stay in jail. You don't get to leave the jail. You just go to this other section of the jail where you're in a room and you're virtually in the criminal courtroom down in the city county building.
It's not uncommon in the past couple of years.
I know, and especially now, and some of the rules of procedure were forgiven, air quotes or whatever. There was exception to rules of procedure because of the COVID and all this different stuff. Right. But this was something that the county and the sheriff's office were planning on before. Their argument is it's cheaper and safer because the transportation costs.
Right.
You know, we don't have to worry about an escape on transit. We don't have to do the transit, so it's cheaper and safer.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about that aspect of it.
It's not cheaper. At least Eric says it's not cheaper. It might be safer. Maybe. But, I mean, I guess it does take one thing out. But anyway, the thing that Eric's talking about is he's like, I have to talk to my clients. As a public defender, it's my job. I am their lawyer. I need to be able to talk to my clients. You can't call somebody in jail. Right. If you do, it's taped. Even if they say it's not taped. Apparently the company that does the phone systems for Knox County, this third-party company that does them, is under investigation in lawsuits in other states and other prison systems where they were found taking recorded messages between defendants and their lawyers from phone calls to and from the prison and giving it to the DA, which is illegal and unethical and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, he can't do his job correctly with this, this thing. But anyway, the point is to bring it up. It's like, so maybe the sheriff's office isn't taking this data or taking these phone calls and handing them over to the DA, but this company is still going to keep them. Maybe with these camera systems, they do delete them for access for KPD within that 30-day period or whatever the law says. But I'll bet you the company keeps them, the company that operates these systems. They keep them, or they aggregate that data and use it and sell it for something else. apparently there's a like a suicide prevention text line. Heard about this one?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's multiple.
Right, but there's apparently one
suicide
of them.
hotlines,
One of them does very well, and then it's text only because that's their kitsch in the game is that they're text only, and they're a nonprofit and they get grants to operate what they do, but they have a for-profit sub entity that when you sign up or text the service, you agree to whatever. And they sell that data to this other company who sells that data to a Facebook or an Amazon for, whatever. It's like this sad, depressed, wanting to kill themselves person. They understand you and wants and needs kind of stuff, and then they sell that to marketers and stuff like that to sell you shit. Because you were desperate enough to reach out, and now you're a target for marketing.
That's fucked up.
But that's what they do. I mean, that's what all these companies do, and it's gross. And I don't know what the corrective measure is for it. But especially when it comes to the relationship between the public and the government, that should be avoided at all costs. A private exchange version, that's one thing. But between the public and government, it should be avoided with extreme prejudice.
But I would almost think in that instance, unless it was a governmental, text program for this. But if it's a third party, and I kind of wonder if it's a funding issue, basically. If they didn't have the fund to set that up, and then an advertising company came in and said, "Hey, we'll fund this if you'll give us access to."
Right, and I understand. And that's what I was trying to say. When it's a private enterprise doing a quote socially responsible action or whatever, that's one thing. But that's different when the government is directly involved. I don't know how that texting, the suicide prevention text line thing. I don't know how it is directly funded, and whether that's the only way they can function. And at least there's a little sympathy for you. You're doing a good thing, and you need to figure out a way to make it. At least pay for itself, and this is how you figured that out. But that's different with the camera system thing. Yes, that's a third party company that owns the camera system thing, but that only the data they get only exists because they have a relationship with the government, and that government has a relationship and responsibility to me and you. So it's a different conversation than it is for a private company doing what they're doing with the text thing.
Yeah.
That's my only point. Even though it is a private company that operates these camera systems, I presume. That relationship being between the government and the citizenry makes that conversation different between, a nonprofit action group and the public.
Should have just cut out the third party. I don't know why and just buy the cameras, administer it ourselves.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions on that too, because this one, one that I was talking to Oakley this week. I intentionally shut the conversation down because I didn't want to go on the deep dive into the school books and the cost of books for schools and how ridiculous some of the books are and stuff like that. But that's one of the thoughts I've had on that. It's in a school system as big as the state of Tennessee, why aren't we creating our own books? Why are we third partying it out at all? Is it because the argument should be that it's cheaper, but it's obviously not. I mean, it's presumed. I can't imagine it's not cheaper to do it ourselves than to do this third party shit. There's plenty of companies in the state of Tennessee that print, and we have plenty of teachers that are smart enough that they can build a book and other materials around a curriculum that the state sets up that's specific and direct, and it's not one of those, well, we're going to go from chapter 1 to 5, then back to 2, and then to 7, and that's all we use this book the entire year. Remember that, especially in high school, where we had I remember a couple books in high school where we used half the book, and maybe if you went on to AP chemistry or something like that, you'd use the second half of the book, and maybe that was a method they were trying to figure out how to save money. But I remember using chunks of books and skipping around through the content of the books because it wasn't the curriculum of the classroom was not built to the curriculum the same flow of the way the book was written or the book was compiled.
I think I remember doing that a couple times in maybe a math class, but it's been a while.
I mean, but like I said, I get to be, it's if we want to, we have our own education department. We have rules that are set forth that the feds do drop down on us, but we have our own education department. We have plenty of smart people that we could be creating curriculum and the corresponding materials to go with curriculum ourselves instead of third-partying out that curriculum.
All right, we'll go with... Well, I mean, I know we have our State Department of Education, but, I mean, go a step further. Why would you not break it down to a district level?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think Knox County Schools is big enough that they could create their own materials. Sure. Now, in Anderson or Roane County might have a little bit harder time with that. And if we have, I don't know, to say whether or not we have some obligation to the smaller counties around us because of the way the world works, I don't know. But I don't see why not. I don't see why we don't have I mean, if in my play, if I was going to redraw the way this thing works, I would dissolve the State Department anyway.
I mean, why not take it down a step further and have each individual school pick their own curriculum?
I mean, I'm not talking...
What would be the downside in that?
Well, you're shifting topics.
No, I'm taking that example.
No, you're not. You're shifting topics.
I'm not shifting topics.
No, because I'm talking about creating books. I'm not talking about creating curriculum. They're not the same thing. I'm perfectly okay.
What?
A book and a curriculum is not the same thing.
The book is the curriculum.
No, the book is built to teach the curriculum that you want to teach. There's like
I see what you're saying.
You know, like because you could do a World War II history or a 20th and 21st century history book based on a curriculum set that we want to do that has parts and pieces here and there. I mean, you're not going to have a perfectly 100% perfect history book in a school setting that goes from 1900 to today. You're going to pick and choose which parts, which major world events that you want to cover, which ones you don't. You know, I mean, how much time they spend on the Korean War versus the Vietnam War? You know, it's just whatever. And so the curriculum is built specifically on which things we highlight, which things we talk about, what we're trying to teach with this part of history. But the book doesn't have, I mean, the book can be anything. It doesn't have to be the same thing, or it could be adjusted around that. Anyway, the point is being, if we're going to go like full autistic libertarian on it, sure. I would rather have all schools be private schools anyway, and those schools build the curriculum however they want, and whatever standard that school sets is the standard. It doesn't need a state or federal standard or a county standard for graduation.
You see no downsides to that.
I mean, there's holes in it, sure. There's potential problems, yeah. But
such as what problems do you see? And your example.
I mean, because if you're going to say
in your desired example.
I mean, I don't know that I necessarily see them as problems, but I see what would be perceived as a problem. The perceived problem would be, well, this school doesn't put any forward effort in, but they graduate everybody, and so these people get to say they graduated from high school, where this other school puts forth a lot of effort and has a high standard or whatever, and those people graduate high school, and when they graduate high school, they're not the same.
Yeah.
I see accessibility as an issue. Like that one I'll agree with. You know, lower middle class to lower class Americans can't afford the schools that do good work. I see that as an issue. I don't necessarily know the remedy to that issue, but having public schools isn't necessarily the remedy to that issue either, because you see the most highest funded schools in Knox County are the ones with the poorest neighborhoods around them. Their student body has the lowest average household income in the county, but they have the most spent on them. Now, I don't know what that means, other than to say that that's a stat that's real.
Okay.
I'm just saying, right. But for me, I think...
well, then why point it out if it's just a stat and you don't know what it means?
Well, because it's something I'm very curious to understand better. I mean, it comes down to, I think it was Jennifer Owen, one of the Jennifer Owen episodes with the one I did with her and McPherson together. I think the reality is it comes down to it. Brass tacks is the average household income has more impact on a student than the amount of money spent in the school they go to. And it's not necessarily about money. It's about the interaction of the family, the investment of the parents into the kids, the energy and effort the parents put into the kids. That higher income has more time, space, more ability to add in things like tutors or something like that, and other assistance to the process.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just the fact that there is more money; it's what that more money brings with it. I guess is the way to illustrate it. But I mean, that's a fact statewide too. Memphis schools spend more on average per student than Knoxville schools. Memphis schools, on the Big Five counties at least, have the lowest scores on the standardized testing and stuff like that as an aggregate on average. I got fidgets.
I kept hearing like this. I was like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, so I fidget. So anyway, I don't know. Like I think I don't know where we start. School books.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the school book game has a lot of problems in it, and I think that's one of many things that is addressable that could have a serious impact on changing the way we look at schools. I think
there was at some point it went from trying to provide good education for the students, and then it became more about money.
I mean, I would struggle to say that it wasn't always about money on some level.
I mean, like nationwide, there's, I don't remember exactly, but it's essentially less than 5 the amount of like standard textbook producers throughout the U.S.
There's a handful of giant publishers.
Right.
Because, I mean, like, I get it for some stuff. Like, for literature, for, like, lit classes, I get it. I get why those books are costly. Because you take an English lit, like an American literature class, like, those are owned properties. Those books or stories or poems. That's owned property, and you have to pay rights for that. And so by going through a big publisher, the big publisher has deals with the other publisher that owns the rights to whatever person's works. And so they can negotiate things out and trade it and shit like that. And the actual owners of that property, like a Robert Frost or something like that, the people who own the rights to his works get the royalties that they deserve for owning those rights. However that works out on the big scale of whatever. But for a math book,
right?
I mean, I don't know that is Pythagorean's theorem copywritten. I don't think so. I don't think it can be. Can basic math equations be, like, I understand that like an algorithm can be copywritten because that's intellectual property used for computers and X, Y, and Z. But can basic math formulas be copywritten? Like, how much? No. Like how many words? Like, how do you copyright a math book? I mean, is a teaching style or is like a teaching method for a particular math, like this new math?
So I think that's where it kind of comes into it. Is maybe, I mean, it's been a while since I've seen a math book, but I think there is actually still like wording, paragraphs in there explaining that particular version of algebra, geometry, whatever.
I mean, I agree with you that there are words in math books, but I guess what the point is that
so that's what I'm wondering if they've copywritten. If someone's written that explanation of it.
But is the idea copyrightable? Because I could write, maybe not for math because I'm not that great at math, but how to, like, a how-to guide on some, I'll stick with Pythagoreans, or since that's in my head right now. I could write a how-to on that's like 5 pages on Pythagorean theorems. It's going to sound generally like every other version of every other book that exists, but is that copyright violation? Am I stealing somebody else's intellectual property by explaining how to work Pythagorean's theorem? I doubt it. But possibly. That could be the problem. This could be the blind spot in my looking into this thing and why this makes sense, but I doubt it. Like, I get it on a history book that somebody wrote a history book, and they going out and they researched and they went out and found journals and did this and did all that stuff and compiled it into one thing.
Right.
I understand on a math book, on the grand scheme, as they compiled all these different things into one book, that is a copyrightable thing. But each individual thing I don't know is copyrightable. And that's what I think's, I don't know, that's a broader question. I need to find somebody to talk to about.
I'm assuming there isn't really a copyright dispute on it.
Right. I mean, to me, I don't know. To me, it sounds like this is like a defense contract kind of deal. You publish books, we need books.
So we can all create, essentially the same thing. Is which one's going to get the contract to do that thing.
Right, and then it's whether it's a campaign donations or you have a printing thing in our state and that makes it better, whatever. Vivian was really fun. I didn't know what to expect out of her. She was fun.
Was it District 11? I saw.
It's countywide. The 10 and 11 are the at-larges.
County commissioner.
Yeah, county commissioner. I was 11's a tough race. I mean, honestly, because I think I've had everybody already for 11. County commission 3, 10, 11. Yeah, because Donald Bridges I still got to get a hold of. He just turned in his final petition. But Devin Driscoll I had earlier this week. Kim Frazier I had last week. Vivian I had today. And Donald Bridges is running as an independent, so of course I want him. But it's interesting. That reminded me. I don't know why. So I got mad at Knox Dem's page again.
Again.
I keep getting mad at them because they're like...
Have you gotten mad at the Knox GOP page at all?
That's what's fun about this story. You ready?
Oh, goodness. Gravy.
Okay. So I haven't gotten mad at the GOP page. You know why?
They don't have a page?
Because it was off. It went off. It got pulled off of Facebook from mid-December until yesterday, actually.
Huh.
And so...
For?
You don't have... No. You're watching the hockey behind me, so you can't see what I pulled up.
I'm just glancing from time to time.
All right, so Knox Dems yesterday at 12:46 p.m. posts, Knox GOP's Facebook page has been removed for repeatedly sharing disinformation and COVID conspiracies. And in my attempt to be fairly... what's the word I'm looking for here? Diplomatic about my questioning of this statement... I say, do you have a source for that? I'm curious to know where they went. And I did this from the Almost an Agreement page.
Where who went?
Where the Knox GOP's Facebook page went.
Yeah.
And...
where did it go?
Right. And so somebody on mine says... responding to me says, I would think the fact that it's not there anymore would be credible evidence that it's not there anymore. To which I said, I agree, it's suspicious that it wasn't because it's now back up. But I agree that it's suspicious that it's not there, but the assertion that it was for disinformation is, in fact, disinformation. Because I talked to Daniel at the GOP page, and he sent me a bunch of screenshots where it shows that they've had 0 violations and this, that, and the other. And that for some reason, Facebook took them down. No explanation. Just came back yesterday. And this is what... So going back to the root cause of it, yes, I knew that the Knox GOP page was down. I was curious as to why it was down. The Knox Dems assertion of why it was down is reasonable. It is well within things that have happened on Facebook and it's also reasonable that the Knox County GOP might have shared some of these things that were COVID conspiracies or whatever. All parts and pieces of what the Knox Dems statement was are reasonable. It's not out of left field. Out of right field, I guess. But it's not out of nowhere. Like, this makes sense. It's a plausible story. But they just say it out loud like it's a fact. When, in fact, it's not a fact. And so they're shitting on the GOP for disinformation while they are engaging in disinformation.
Assumptions.
Right. But no, the assumption is one thing. The assumption is, I think, or I feel like they probably... This is stated as a fact. The way they wrote their post is this is stated as a fact. Which... taking an assumption and calling it a fact, that is disinformation, especially when it turns out to be false, or it's a bad guess. But however you want to say it, I think a bad guess would fall into the category of disinformation in today's age. So anyway, yeah, Knox GOP, but Knox GOP's page was back up with an apology from Facebook. We don't know why, but the algorithm kicked you guys off. But you have you have no violations. Here's your page back, and that was it.
So 2 months, month and a half?
Yeah. And so, yeah. And again, it's like I don't particularly try to shit on... and honestly, even when the GOP was on Facebook, they're not active on Facebook. They don't do a lot of stuff. they've never been super active on Facebook when they were, or at least in maybe it's going to change now that we're back in a big cycle or whatever. But no, Knox News did a story like showing the about how they got, Facebook didn't give them an explanation, took them off, and then gave them back and didn't say anything. That was it. Like, there's a story. The News Sentinel did a story on it. I was looking at it on my phone, and I'm not logged into News Sentinel on my phone, and I didn't feel like looking up my password, so I didn't actually read the story from Sentinel.
Oh.
The Edge of the Universe. Oh, I said, okay, never mind. I see what you're doing with it.
Experiment.
Yeah. I need a hunch then. I need to sit lower. See if that helps. What else is going on here?
Did you hear the what do they call him, like Waffle House shooter? He was convicted today.
No, I didn't. I mean, I'd seen it popping around or whatever, but I hadn't seen the specifics. See, there's WBR is supposed to be doing a story. It's one of their few investigative stories about this local kid that was apparently like a jihadist. Did you hear about this? I'll see if I can find it. You tell me more about this Waffle House shooter.
I think I may have seen a little bit about that. Or that story, I think it said they were going to air it tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not as familiar with that.
I'm actually going to try to watch. I'm going to try to watch it. This is my primer, and we'll maybe talk about it next week because I'm going to try to watch the story on it. Because Benjamin Carpenter has federal charges. A Knoxville man accused of trying to help ISIS terrorists said he plans to argue his actions are protected under the First Amendment when he represents himself in a federal court trial this summer. So the goal is to keep up with it over the summer. I mean, I think it's a lost cause if he's going against the feds by himself.
If he's allowed to represent himself.
I mean,
that's one thing I've learned in watching videos on other things, that I can't remember what it's called, but there's an actual process that judges go through, rightfully to protect.
Right, to allow him to present himself.
Right. I mean, in this instance, it's for that the offender or the person being charged. It's to allow them a proper court hearing.
Right.
They can't turn around and say, "Oh, well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that much about the legal system." There's no turning around and saying that you were convicted because, like, "Oh, well, I didn't know about that proceeding. I didn't know about this." It's like, well, that's exactly why you don't need to be representing yourself. So if someone wants to represent themselves, there is a process for actually confirming that.
I mean, either way, he plans to fight the charges. I mean, whether it's by himself or with an attorney.
All right, I don't see that happening.
By himself?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. So that's one thing. I mean, that's a subset of the story.
That's a subset of it.
Yeah. I don't. But it says in a series of interviews from Knox County Jail, Benjamin Carpenter said he has no regrets and does not consider himself a terrorist, though he does admit support for the Islamic State terrorist group, which is claimed responsibility for this, that, and the other. He has no qualms of being described as pro-Islamic State because we share the same methodology and outlook. Federal agents arrested Carpenter while he was working as a dog walker. Said he agreed to assist an undercover FBI agent to transcribe and translate 25-minute ISIS about whatever. He faces charges that translation was an attempt to provide material assistance to the terror group. As a dog walker, prosecutors said he agreed to assist an undercover FBI agent to transcribe and translate a 25-minute ISIS video. I don't know. I'm gonna have to dig more into this. I don't know that I feel like that's criminal per se. It's a bad idea.
But in the face of the words that you just said, yes, asking someone to essentially transcribe,
I mean, it doesn't say what the undercover FBI agent...
Essentially be a translator is one thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't say what the undercover FBI agent's... what's the word I'm looking for here? Stated mission was, as far as when he went... So this Carpenter kid who has, has no qualms of calling himself pro-Islamic State. So some guy walks up to him and says, "Hey, I want you to translate this for me." I don't see criminal in that. No, he says, "I want you to translate this for me because I want to distribute it and try to radicalize other people in English because they don't understand the base language of this video." All right, that adds something, but it doesn't. It's not clear here that the intent of the video has anything to do with anything.
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, it's something to keep an eye on.
As you stated, you didn't read the full story, so.
Right. Still working on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. At least the idea that translating a video for an FBI agent is a crime, I think that's kind of fucked up. But I think the FBI uses shitty tactics. And
again, you're saying this without reading the full story as to what the actual charges are, correct?
Yeah, it said he was aiding terrorism. Fuck, I gotta go pull it up again.
Oh, okay. So I'm sorry, I'm just pushing back on you're basing your perception on this on not actually reading the full story and taking
when I hear the phrase
5 sentences.
When I hear the phrase undercover FBI agent, I tend to immediately assume the FBI was doing something shitty. You're right.
That was not what I was implying. I'm just saying.
I assume entrapment. So when I see any parts and piece of it, I assume it's bullshit. I agree with you. I'm running on an assumption, and I need to look further into it. So we're going to war with Ukraine.
Thank you. Fucking says who?
We sent 2,000 more troops over today.
All right.
That's not a thing to think about, or that doesn't count as anything?
We sent them to where?
Poland and Romania.
Okay.
Nobody directly into Ukraine, because that would be an obvious escalation.
All right.
As opposed to a obvious escalation.
All right. I believe you said in our text, like you said, by November.
I
mean, we're still like 6 months off, and you're like, we're going to war. We're going to war.
I think pre-elections when some heat goes down. God. Apparently, Ukraine defenses fired some missile as a warning shot this afternoon.
Who to what? Sorry.
Apparently, Ukraine's Ukraine's military, as a show of defense or whatever, fired some missiles off somewhere in Ukraine. Just like, hey, we got these big missile things.
What? They just fired some missiles off.
They just fired some missiles off to say, hey, look, we got these missiles.
Interesting. Oh. And I've also seen a few stories of basically like everything's been hyped up.
I mean, it does sound to me, at least as far as on the direct...
And that's one thing that I worry about, that essentially it's both sides that are, kind of amping up their populace and kind of preparation for it, to where it's almost asking for that expectation of a conflict.
Right. Both teams playing the game.
To where at some point, and at some levels, it comes, essentially saber rattling, as no one wants to back down, because one side has believed that one side is aggressing on the other. So I think there was our intelligence, the Department of Defense came out and said that they thought that Russia may try to do a false flag thing. Essentially try to, I guess, purport that there was an attack on Russian to then preempt a war. I mean, I worry it's going to get to the point where, no one wants to seem weak and actually, like, back down when things are happening. Because a lot of our troops sending over were, I'm assuming, in response to reports that Russia had sent, troops and military to their western borders. Western borders.
Right. Which is a response to the U.S. and NATO inviting Ukraine in.
Yeah, that's one thing that Russia's touched.
NATO.
I haven't really read so much into those stories that Russia's recently come out and said, that with all this kind of going back and forth, that no one has really considered, Russia's worries, I guess, on that.
Yeah, nobody gives a shit about what Ukraine has to do with any of it either. That's the funny part. Nobody really cares about Ukraine's stance.
Well, no, I mean, there's been talk for years, essentially, since the establishment of the United Nations, or NATO. So, NATO. NATO? That they're having a problem with?
Yeah.
Okay. Essentially, since in the late 80s, early 90s, when we had the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So now you have former Soviet blocs. So I guess it has worried Russia if a former Soviet bloc would then now be a part of the...
Again, it's like I said the other day. It's like it's the opposite of the Cuban Missile Crisis, or it's the inverse version of it. Cuba being a communist country and having missiles that close to our border, we did not like. We as Americans are not okay with 80 miles off our shores, a nuclear-armed country who is in league with the communists. Inversely, right now, Russia does not like the idea of an actual border country being in league with the West. And has been very vocal about the fact that they don't want, and I believe it was like from the establishment of NATO, Russia was like, don't put any of our border countries in NATO or we're going to have a problem. And I believe I guess it was Reagan or whomever the original head of NATO was, had not documented, but basically said that we won't add any of the neighboring countries to NATO as requested.
That I'm unfamiliar with.
And so, and the other part too, it's like, why? Like, what is it for you and me here right now? What does it matter if Ukraine's in NATO?
Not much.
So how hard would it be for Biden to be like, hey, you know what? I'll do, at least for the U.S.'s side of it, our NATO ambassador...
But what say do we have if that country wants to be a part of NATO?
Well, but the issue is that it's an invitation that NATO put out. It's not that NATO requested to be part of. It's that the NATO... it's not that Ukraine had requested to be part of NATO. It's that NATO invited Ukraine to join. So Biden could go, I'm going to get my NATO ambassador to say, hey, the U.S. would like to rescind that invitation to Ukraine. Okay. Who does that hurt?
I mean, I'm not familiar with how countries join NATO, but I'm assuming it's an application to join NATO. It's not NATO reaching out and like, hey, do you want to join our party?
NATO invited Ukraine and somebody else at the same time. I can't remember who the other one was.
But I'm assuming also that they would not offer that if there was not interest in it. I don't.
Maybe
I'm speculating.
And again, and I will agree with you in the sense that if Ukraine wants to join NATO, that's Ukraine's decision, not Russia's. Russia doesn't get to say, no, you don't get to do what you want to, Ukraine. I agree with that.
Used to be part of us.
Right.
Used to be one of us, but you ain't no more.
As I understand it, it's the invitation that was the problem for Putin. The invitation's been out for a while.
Yeah, it seemed like Putin was saying that basically there was, I guess under your assumption, there was some kind of understanding that would just never happen.
That NATO would never allow a Russian border country to join. That was the agreement post-Cold War. We will make less nukes annually than we were making. We will turn this thing down. We will turn this thing down. But part of this agreement is this. Everything else was in writing. This part wasn't in writing. And now the verbal promise is being broken. And that's what pisses off the Russians, or at least Putin and the Russians.
I mean, I can honestly say I don't fully understand.
I mean, I fully don't understand it either. But some of the sources that I have...
Oh, sorry.
Have kind of spelled it out. Because again, I don't know. This is the issue that I have with NATO in general. It's like, you know, this is your thing too, which is funny to me, is Germany, France, England, they haven't activated troops and sent them over to Poland and Romania.
You know this for a fact?
No.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure. Haven't heard anything about that specifically. I would think in that whole we're doing this as a group thing that you like to talk about all the time, that when the news comes on and says Biden is activating 8,500 troops to be on high alert or whatever the terminology they put out was, along with France and Russia, or France and Germany and UK and Australia and whoever else is part of the things, for a total of X number of troops. I would think that would be the way I think you would present it if you were the media. you would say that this is part of a group effort, but it doesn't sound like that I've seen at least. It doesn't sound like this is a NATO joint effort. This sounds like the U.S. and Russia, and NATO's just kind of there like, okay, I guess we're part of this.
I don't know what the whole process as far as how NATO stocks their forces, essentially. Because I saw an interesting story earlier about Mali, and I think it was in reference or in the viewpoint from the Germans, because I guess the Germans have troops in Mali under UN, I guess under the UN flag, because there's been so many countries that have essentially, I think, for what the story was saying, there's so many countries that have kind of thrown off military coups or have been involved in coups, essentially. But then these kind of where the military has come in, they've never actually established any kind of democratic process to then restore order, quote unquote order.
Right. I mean, just a quick search or whatever. Radio Free Europe says, headline, NATO says it won't send troops to Ukraine if Russia invades. But U.S. plans to deploy additional troops to fortify NATO forces. NATO, no troops will be deployed in Ukraine. NATO forces are on standby. It's a YouTube video, so I don't have the...
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think NATO's at least trying to be precautionary and not trying to up the stakes. And she'd be like, well, we've got 15,000 troops there, like, what you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it feels like.
All that does is escalate the situation.
Right, it's this posturing. We've got Navy fighter jets flying around over the black...
I mean, it's commonplace in warfare in general, is always trying to kind of posture more.
Right. But what happens when one of these sets of posturing...
Not wanting to seem weak.
Right, but what happens when one of these sets that we are posturing right now comes close to one of these other posturing sets, and one person shoots another person?
Right.
What do we do then? Because I don't know what I'd do if I'm a Navy fighter pilot, and I'm flying around over the North Sea, Black Sea? What's it up there? Crimea and between Scandinavia and Russia?
North Sea, I believe.
Yeah, so I'm flying around up there because that's my patrol, and all of a sudden some Russian fighter is in range, and this kind of weird little standoff where we're targeting each other, but we're not pulling the trigger, and I'm like, well, he's got me targeted. I just blew some guy out of the sky. What does Russia do in response? Either way.
That's what happens a lot of in high-tension situations like that, where everyone's essentially on, like, ready, standby, fingers,
let's do it.
Fingers on the trigger.
So, That's
why there was a story about, I guess, Russian was supposed to do some kind of, like war games type thing in the North Sea near the coast of Ireland, which, to Russia's credit, they said that they were going to move it or delay it or whatever, and they weren't going to do it right off the coast of Ireland. So Ireland's basically like, I don't think you guys need to do war games like right off the coast of our country right now.
Yeah, not a good time.
Yeah, it's not a good time for this.
Right. I just need a little space. I gotta worry about me right now. Just a little bit of time for me. I need some me time.
I mean, it's happened the same thing with North Korea. I mean, I guess it's been like a yearly thing that we kind of have like a war games kind of training type thing with South Korea. But when tensions were high, I think it was last year or year before.
Right, because it's intentionally to show off and intimidate.
It can definitely be perceived as that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but the difference...
I mean, yeah, you could argue that it's training, but it goes both ways. It's also training, right. But it's like...
We'll take the bonus.
If shit were ever to happen, look what we could do. Look at all these tanks that we can roll across the field and blow this other shit up. Like,
right, I think that's one of the ones that concerns me most, is that one of the battalions that they sent over there is an armored battalion. It's a tank battalion that they're sent over to...
Who sent to
Poland. That Biden sent to Poland, yeah. Ah. Like it's a tank battalion out of Fort Bragg or something like that. 2,000 people. Some ungodly sum of equipment, I would assume, goes with them.
Fort Bragg's our biggest base. think in the U.S.
It's a big Army base, yeah.
I don't know if they're necessarily known for their armored divisions. But I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, they're going over there. We're going to war. Anyway, that's that.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's inevitable, right?
I mean, the Warhawks want their money.
I don't see it going down.
I hope it doesn't go down. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just seeing what's in front of me, and I'm predicting the future. I think we're staring down. It may end up being economic conflicts, but between Russia, China, basically, between Russia and China and the rest of the world, there is a significant conflict coming. I don't know how we don't.
Putin and Xi Jinping just met today earlier.
Yeah, we're hanging out at the Olympics. Pretty much as a fuck you to the American ambassador ban.
Think so?
Yeah. I watched a little bit of the pre-opening ceremonies thing tonight, which was a replay or whatever, but it's all the fucking theater that they do. But apparently, nobody's going. None of the families, if your kid's in the Olympics or whatever, you go, and nobody's going. So, there's a bunch of interviews with family. Some of them were athletes that have been in prior Winter Olympics. It's yeah, we went to whatever into the last Winter Olympics with them, and we're not going this year because of whatever. And it's a little rough. And apparently, there was some Uyghur snowboarder or something like that. I'm really confused on that story as well.
I think as part of the final lighting of it, yeah, they did have a Uyghur and a quote unquote Chinese person, I guess, that did the final lighting.
Yeah. I thought there was something about a snowboarder in there too. I don't know.
I'm not sure about the specifics of a snowboarder.
I watched a little bit of curling already, so I'm happy. I got my Winter Olympics out of the way. Curling's all that matters to me. Seriously? Curling is my favorite Winter Olympic event.
Seriously.
Yeah. The pros aren't there in hockey, so that's not worth watching. What's better than curling?
There's not many winter sports that I'm like, I gotta watch it. So I guess I'm kind of biased in that.
I agree. Skiing's kind of cool.
I've tried to watch curling, but I can't really get into it.
Biathlon's kind of cool.
Maybe it's because I still don't fully understand it. I think they get 3 or 4.
It's cornhole.
Rolls.
Whatever. Cornhole is built off of curling, whether anybody will admit it or not.
Not so much.
Yeah, it's based.
Shuffleboard is closer to fucking curling than...
Maybe.
What do you mean, maybe?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Shuffleboard's got that weird diamond scoring pattern. It's closest to center. And if the same team that's closest to center is also second, third, fourth, with however many stones...
But there's no hole that automatically gives you the point.
Right, but the scoring is...
Or if you don't get closest, your whatever the fuck they call the curling thing, stone can get knocked off.
Right, but it's more
it's
like your stones versus their stones, and you subtract their stones from your stones, and that's how you come up with the score per round.
It's more like bocce ball on ice.
Yeah, our bocce works. Yeah, that is better than curling, or that is better than cornhole, but I disagree with shuffleboard.
You're right.
Yeah,
it's essentially the same concept where you're shoving a thing down there and you're getting points depending on where it lands.
But to me, I feel like
knock some shit around.
I feel like curling would be a little better if it had cornhole rules, because the cornhole that I played, the rule was your non-throwing hand had to have a beer in it.
I'm just kind of amazed that they've been able to break it down to, if we sit there and keep sweeping a whole bunch of shit off, it's going to turn this way or slow down.
That's one of those things that that's one of the sports that makes it clear that there's levels. There are serious levels to everything. You can be a complete novice, or you can be good, but once you get to good, it goes to, there's 10 levels above good, but they're really close together. Chess is the same way for people that are good at chess. People that are good at chess versus a chess champ. A champ will just destroy any good chess player every day of the week.
A grandmaster?
Yeah. But you can be pretty good at chess. You can be, and you can play the game and have a good time with the game. But like when it gets to that level where we're talking like world tournament style chess, that's how curling is. Like anybody could go out and curl. But to get to those levels, and like once you get to a certain level and it's either you get real serious or it's just a hobby, like that kind of like where those levels split. And I think everything does that. Like I think most sports do that, most anything. I think anything actually probably does that. Music does that. There are people that are really interested and really good at guitar, but to get to a Stevie Ray Vaughan or a Jimi Hendrix level, it's a whole different thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how hard you try or how much you practice. There's certain things that there's something else at play, that there's a level above. No matter how hard you try, you can't get there. And I think Jimi Hendrix and guitar is that. I think some of these curling pros, there's a level that is attainable that is just you can't understand it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
But I think it applies. I think it's a life application. Maybe that's why I like curling, because it shows that. It shows that the energy and the effort and the skills and all the different stuff combine into this new level that is just incomprehensible, even if you've played it, which I've never actually curled, but
I mean, I can't say I see it as such.
Okay. But I mean, I see that in a lot of things. I guess that's the way I look at a lot of stuff. Because like, I don't know, like,
I mean, in this day and age, I mean, with many sports, with anything that's timed, I mean, it's gotten to the point where you're talking about fractions of a second are literally the differences.
Right. And those differences can manifest in 1,000 different things on the day of the event.
Right.
Where two individuals that their best efforts are almost identical every time, the wind direction and the number of stars that are visible in the sky change the outcome. They just don't know what changes those outcomes because they're so close physically and capability-wise. But for whatever reason, this person wins the day instead of that person. But 100 times those two play against each other in whatever the game is, and it's 50-50 because they're so close.
It's going to come down to fine points of what happened in that particular event.
Right. But that's why it's fun. I think that's why I think part of the reason I like curling is because it's obscure. Nobody's a pro. It's not like you're going home. It's not like hockey. And I miss NHL in the Olympics. I miss the top hockey players in the world playing in the Olympics. I wish we had that back. I wish we had more top-level sports that did world tournaments like the Olympics. I think that's why World Cup is good, because the best in the world are playing. It's not B team because the A team's playing their pro games. And I like that. Yeah, but it takes it to another level to me, I guess, when it's a completely amateur sport.
All right, if you look back to some of the Summer Olympics, back when the U.S. fielded the Dream Team, we were just fucking mopping the floor with any other team.
Right.
For like 2 or 3 Olympics in a row.
Right, but I think that's changed over time because of the popularity of the sport worldwide.
I think it's because we started limiting the stars we put into it.
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, I think in recent past Olympics, when they took that out, we don't have the pros playing as much anymore.
Right.
Maybe, but you have pros. You have some top level pros now that aren't Americans. You have NBA players.
Yeah, how many
that are playing for international teams?
Right. I mean, what would you consider the ratio of American?
I don't know. I'm sure
American players to. I mean, even just like in the general American to non-American.
I'm sure there's a chart
to where that non-American is any other else.
Well, it's like
in
the joke
the world.
It's like the joke about like.
I mean, I would put it at less than 10%.
It's like the joke about Brazilian soccer. Like the Brazilian C team is better than the best U.S. teams.
Huh?
Like you have Brazil soccer, the top level Brazil soccer,
right?
That they can field 2 or 3 teams that are going to beat the U.S. team 9 times out of 10. Oh. That the second and third string Brazilian team is better than the first string American team.
I would quite say that. I mean, that's going to depend on in what kind of situation. If this is a U17 league or
no, I'm talking about the best of the best
national teams.
National team. Now the U.S. team's getting better. I agree with that. And they might compete
definitely
better.
Had our ups and downs,
but the depth. But I'm trying to support your point in basketball. The depth of American basketball is like the depth of Brazilian soccer.
Oh, okay.
There are more better soccer players that hail from Brazil than the United States. And so while in basketball you have you have a handful of pros from Spain, you got a bunch of Eastern European guys that are playing basketball now. Yao's retired, but that other Chinese guy was a big deal. You have a handful of Asian players in the NBA, but not many. But it's not it's probably 90% instead of 99.5% what basketball has been. It's starting to spread out. And I think part of why it's starting to spread out is because of getting the Dream Team in the Olympics back in the 90s. I think basketball became more popular worldwide because of that.
I think so.
Yeah. Because like when you're in Yugoslavia watching basketball, you might catch an American ball or whatever, but that's Americans playing against Americans. You don't understand how good they are until you see them playing against your countrymen.
I think the reason limit, I think we allowed, there were some pros in there. I don't know if they limit the number or I'm not really sure how, excuse me, how they started trying to restrict it. But I mean, we lost some games to like Spain and some other countries.
Yeah.
Where everybody was like, oh, they're going to win. They're like, oh, shit. Oh, what's going on? Like, they're,
right.
Blaine's no
well,
good.
It's funny, like in summer ball, they pulled softball out because the U.S. team murdered every year. And then the last year that softball was an Olympic sport, the U.S. didn't win it.
No.
Like they'd won it every time that softball was a sport, except for the last time. And the reason why they pulled it out was because it was non-competitive because of U.S. softball. And then they lost, which is hilarious. Local stuff.
That was sports.
That was our sports section. I find it interesting that you and I end up having pretty good sports conversations.
It didn't have to do with football that I know very little about and don't know much about baseball. I wouldn't even say that I know a lot about hockey. Which is probably the one sport that I follow the most.
Right. I have not. I don't know. Like I lost hockey a couple years ago. Like I haven't been watching near as much.
I try to catch almost every Predators game that I can.
I do want to try to go to a game, and it's going to have to be after spring break. At this point, like I'm not going to have. I just can't see where in my schedule I'm going to fit it. I'm excited about Tuesday. Tuesday I've got this Dylan. I can't remember his first name. Something Dylan. Yeah, he's running for a commission seat. Dylan Early, commission seat 10. He is the most vocally inaccurate person I've seen so far on Facebook. He's running on schools and he's running for county commission. Cares about schools. School this, school that.
I was about to say, I was like, you're going to have to be more clear.
Yeah. And so I got him on, hopefully he listens to this so he can prep himself for me being mean to him. But I've got him on Tuesday. I've got Steve Triplett, who is also, no, he's a school board. Oh, there's too many names. It's getting too much. But Steve Triplett's school board. And then I've got Miss Witt, the county clerk, coming in on Friday, as well as Steve Weiner. I'm sorry, Steve. I'm just joking.
What?
Steve Weiner.
So I swear, like Sherry Witt has been the county clerk for like 20 plus years.
I'll ask.
Like I think we went to school with her brother.
Ward?
Yeah.
So Witt Lumber, the same family?
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure.
I didn't think about that until you just said it.
I'm pretty sure it's the same family.
The Witts. Were there two of the brothers, or is there three?
I only knew of Ward.
Okay. Because I saw Ward at the 4th of July parade. He was driving the Witt Lumber truck, and I can't remember who was on the back.
I mean, he was. I didn't think you were here because he was a senior when I was a freshman. And I thought you came your sophomore year.
I came halfway through freshman year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that one because that is the one that we're going to try to get Max to run, because right now that's the last unopposed, non-legal position. Because I don't have my buddy.
Sorry, I mean, unless she had like some off years, like I swear she's been like the incumbent for years and years.
I mean, I don't like. I'm curious. That's what I'm curious to know. Like, because like that one, I want to know what the job is. I really want to know what the job is. And I got in an argument on Facebook with somebody about this. Like I do. Because I disagree. Like I wholly disagree, and let me find you and call you out by name, person.
You don't need to call people out by name.
She's a public figure. She was a. It was interesting. I was talking to Eric Lutton about stuff. She was an assistant public defender under Mr. Lutton. They worked together in the past. But can't find it. Anyway, moral is I'm operating on the assumption that it's a managerial position. Like this was the argument I had with this person I can't remember the name of. Is that I've never been to the DMV to get my license or plates renewed or my marriage license when we got married or any of that stuff, and had the fortune of having Miss Witt sitting across the desk from me.
It wouldn't be very often that you do.
I would argue that it's never. I couldn't imagine that it's ever happened in her tenure, whether her tenure was just the last 4 or the last 20, like
right.
Guessing.
The official paperwork would have her stamp on it.
Right. And so the question is, what's the job? Like, what do they actually do? And I I went off and I did some research, like I do, on my jobs description sheet. And from the UTE library thingy, they make $131 plus thousand a year. Numerous duties, including acting as clerk of the county legislative body, which is just the person who handles the paperwork that the legislative body creates. Issuing motor vehicle titles and registrations, collecting privilege taxes, and overseeing the issuance of beer permits, marriage license, pawnbroker license. We talked about this before. She doesn't issue the beer permits in the sense of approves the application for a beer permit. At least for Knox County. It may be in some smaller counties that's the way it works.
The final signatory, yeah.
But in Knox County, the commission approves a beer permit, and then the clerk's office
essentially, yeah, it's the final
prints
rubber
signs
stamp.
it, and hands it to the person who asked for it.
Right.
Which again, the office does that. That person doesn't. Now, if there's something weird, because I think what it really comes down to that I'm trying to actually start to get a grasp on is that it is really the county law director that's really the one that takes care of that really does most of the legwork for the clerk's office. And that something weird happens. One of the people that sit across the desk from you when you're getting your license or permit or whatever it is that the clerk's office is issuing, something weird happens, goes up to Witt's desk. Witt goes, "This is weird. Law department, what do I do with this?" Law department comes back. "This is what you do with this." Witt goes, "Here, person who's asking for permit X, Y, or Z, this is what's happening." Like, I don't see that the clerk's office has autonomy to make a decision outside of, let me check with legal. May I partake?
Yeah. I think they have autonomy, but I would assume that they only go to the law department when it's controversial.
Right, but I would assume it only gets to Witt's desk if it's controversial. What else would go to her desk?
Everything else.
No.
Literally everything. Like, they are the final. She is the final person to sign off on different things.
When you go get your license plate renewed,
right? I'm pretty
that paperwork goes over her desk. If we mean the royal desk of the clerk's office,
I mean, I'm assuming
yes.
it goes through people that are designated to, I guess, sign off on her behalf.
Right. My point, I guess, in this is that the elected county clerk is not a clerk. They're a manager. All they're doing is managing the assistant clerks that are in all the little clerk's office that we interact with on a daily basis. They manage that office. They hire and fire people. They set policy on, I don't know, how we do the number system when you go in there. When you go in and pull the tab, this is how we do the number system. And these weird little, like, because last time I went in, there was like I, J, K, and then a number. And so, like, one desk was doing all I's, another desk was doing J's and K's. And so when I pulled my number, I pulled a J2. But the number thing on the little board was like I4. Okay. And so it was like this weird little complex multiple number tab pull thingy. And so setting policies on how they deal with the office itself, that's the clerk's job. But as far as issuing and not issuing permits, that's all written in law. You get weird gray area. It's like, is the citizenship here legal for this person to hold this permit?
I mean, to an extent, yeah. It's a, I want to say formulation, but that's not quite right.
No, I think the majority of the clerk's office is formulaic, yes. That the clerk's job, the actual elected clerk, Miss Witt in this case, I'm assuming the job is, it's a personnel manager. They're hiring people that can do the job of issuing the paperwork. They're hiring people that can do the job of the computer systems that they use. They're hiring people that do the job of, I don't know, for all intents and purposes, cleaning the offices that they work in. I doubt that the clerk is doing much more than the policy on how we do the job that is required for us to do. They don't get to make the decisions of yes or no. They just follow the law on what they have to cover. And so, yes, I believe this is a high-paid, do-nothing elected job.
They could make the decision of yay or nay.
Right, because that was the lady.
But I would also think, in a lot of other licensure-type things, you have that final stamp to officiate a business license or whatever by the Secretary of the State or whatever. And that Secretary of the State has that power, but those people that are actually filing and actually dealing with all that paperwork that goes to an establishing a business or a beer license or whatever, or other people that are dealing with it.
Right.
But on your actual form, you do have that final officiant of the highest level as the final stamp.
Right, the highest level in the county.
Right.
That has the stamp.
Right.
But the stamp, they designate that stamp out to a bunch of people.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. They're managing an office. Okay. Other people are doing the actual work. That's the question. What is the actual job? What you're illustrating right now is the job is hiring a group of people to act on your behalf.
I'm saying that it's not uncommon to the structured system of the way government runs.
So my point is, what does it matter if it's Max or Miss Witt? What changes? What can change? That's maybe a better way to say it. What could change if Max was doing it versus Miss Witt doing it? How much actual discretion does the clerk have to make changes to that office?
Assuming they still have the final say.
I don't think they do.
How would they not?
Well, let's reference our Kentucky homophobic example that refused to issue marriage licenses to gay couples, even though it was federal law.
Right.
Now, technically, yes, she had the final say and refused to issue those licenses. And then she got her job taken away.
No. That particular person did not have the final say.
Who did?
The person above her.
Which would be the Secretary of State.
I don't know who was directly above that person and that particular...
Because she wasn't a clerk employee, she was the clerk. This Kentucky lady.
She was the county clerk?
I believe so.
I'm unsure of. I don't know.
My understanding of it is she refused to do the licenses. So for a period of time, people didn't get their licenses because they didn't get the stamp from the lady who had the job of issuing the stamps. But she was removed from office because it wasn't her decision. She doesn't get to make the decision on whether or not you're allowed to get married or not. Her job as the county clerk of that municipality was to go through the checklist. Are all the things on the checklist checked? And from the time she got the job to the time a certain couple came in to ask for their marriage license, one of the check boxes changed. Because it no longer said that male or female was the legal definition of marriage. And she didn't want to check the box that said, this is a couple that can be married. And then she got fired or recalled or whatever the specific fallout was. But she got removed from office because she wasn't doing the job. The job is to issue the marriage license as the state sees fit.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. I knew she was actually in the office, so I assumed that she wasn't someone that was actually
she was just
dealing with the paperwork.
She was just some actual deputy clerk or whatever it is that you and I go and deal with when we go get her. Right. That would have been fired immediately and it goes away. That's not a story. The only reason it was a story is because of the politics involved, because that person was elected to be there. And that person was flexing their electedness, saying the elected body elected me to not let this happen.
Yeah, so I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I remember those parts of it. But again, my assumption is it's a personnel manager. They're hiring people, they're firing people, and they're setting basic policies for the workplace. That's it. The actual functional day-to-day of yes or no on this permit, yes or no on this license, that's all formulaic. That's all already built in. That the law is already written on that. And if it gets weird, it goes to the law department to clarify.
All right. Well, let's have this conversation after you talk to someone that's been in that position that knows more about it than you or I.
Okay. I don't know how to ask the conversation. It's like, what do you do all day?
There's a way to do it.
I know. Well, help me out because I'm going to do it this week. I need some help.
You can either, it wouldn't really be playing dumb, but it's being honest. So
that is me doing that is the character that I put on for the show.
Well, then play it up. Be like, so what do you do?
Okay.
Well, what happens if this? And then, well, what about that?
Yeah, you know me. I'll flat say it. I'd be like, I have no idea. I have no idea what the clerk's office.
There's a way to politely dance around it.
No, I'll say I have no idea. I have no idea I don't know what the clerk's office does when I interact with it, but I have no idea what your job in the clerk office is.
Right.
Like, I know that I go get my license plate renewed.
Right.
But that's a state thing. That's really not a county thing. The county, you're just administering that for the state. So what is your job?
Right. I'd say the difference going into the interview with the understanding that you don't know and the understanding that it seems like...
Have you ever listened to any interviews I've ever done?
A few, yes.
Is that not clear from every time I open my mouth that I know I don't know what I'm doing?
Right, but your current stance gives me the impression that you've already assumed that this position...
Oh, I'll say that too, yeah.
Okay.
I assume this is what you do, which is nothing.
All right. That's a wrong way to go into a...
You're right, I won't say that.
That's a wrong way to go into a proper interview.
I suck at interviews, I really do, because I was thinking about it.
Because once you play your hand in that position, you automatically put them on the defensive, and you're not going to get good, honest answers.
The frustrating one to me is I'm trying to get... I'm talking to Biggs. Biggs has got an opponent, Richard Jacobs. But I was trying to get Mr. Current trustee, Ed Schaus. Mm-hmm. I emailed his office and was like, hey, I know you're stepping down from this thing or whatever, but I really want to understand what the job is. Can you come on and do a show? And I've got zero reply from them. And I did that in the same method that I reached out to Sherry Witt's office.
Yeah.
I went through the county webpage and just messaged like, hey, help me understand. But Sherry's running for office, so it matters to her to get out there, where Ed's like, deuces, bitches. I'm out.
Right.
Done with y'all. Had my...
yeah, no thanks. Or maybe there's ulterior motives.
Oh, you want to make fun of the? Well, I don't know. I'll go back to.
Who do we want to make fun of?
Well, I'll go back to one of my other things that everybody questions my reason for being awkward about it is the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office thing. Their Valentine's Day post.
Oh yeah.
I just I don't get it. Like I get it, but it's so gross. It's gross to me. All right, so for those that don't know, Loudoun County Sheriff's Office did a post, and they make a joke at the end of it that they stole it from a North Carolina Sheriff's Office that did it.
I applaud them for not trying to take credit for this.
Yeah, well, yeah.
This idea.
Kudos for owning up to the fact that you didn't create this on your own.
Right.
But this was the last day of January. They posted, tomorrow kicks off the month for celebrating the love in your life, and we don't want you to forget those exes that did you wrong either. Do you have an ex-Valentine and know they have an outstanding warrant? Do you have information that they are driving with drugs in their car? Give us a call with their location and we'll take care of the rest. And it goes on to basically just, like it makes the joke of, we'll give them a great Valentine's Day. We'll feed them meals. We'll put them up in a nice hotel sort of thing. And then, and then at the end, the punchline, or not the punchline, but then they acknowledge the fact that, they stole this from a North Carolina Sheriff's Office.
Yeah.
I guess my gut reaction to reading it the first time was I don't like the idea of soft deputizing and just encouraging narcs. I just don't like the idea of hey, rat out people, especially people that pissed you off. Okay, so example would be, let's say, I don't know, you and your ex, you broke up, it's a bad breakup, whatever. But one of the things you guys enjoyed doing together was getting high. That was one of the mutual things that you enjoyed about each other. You got together, you got high, and had a good time. It ended up that's the only time you had a good time, and you started not liking the person that was behind that person most of the time. But when they were high, they were fun. But when they were, regular, fuck them. Big bad breakup goes on. You move on with your life. You still get high. You still enjoy getting high. That's part of your life still. But just because you're a vindictive dick who still likes to get high, you're going to get your ex in trouble for getting high too. I think that is encouraging you to be a shitty person. Like if they, I don't know, outstanding warrants, depends on what the warrant is, I guess. If your ex is a fucking murderer.
Depends on what the warrant is.
Right.
If there's a warrant out for your arrest, it just depends on what the warrant is.
Yeah. If you have a possession charge that you have a warrant out for you, yeah, that's a dick move to rat you out. If you had a warrant out you for a possession charge, and I thought it'd be funny because I don't like you to get you thrown in jail for a possession charge, I'm the asshole, not you. There's a lot of warrants for a lot of things.
There's a lot of outstanding warrants.
Sure. People have outstanding warrants for all sorts of shit. Unpaid parking tickets, all sorts of fucking stuff.
True.
Now, yeah, if my ex was a fucking serial rapist and this made me laugh enough to think about, you know what, maybe it's time to get my ex off the streets. Okay, there's a win, I guess. But how many people are wandering around with, like, serious warrants? And if people are wandering around with serious warrants, what the fuck are our cops doing?
Case in point.
What?
People that have serious warrants that the police are looking for.
They're not looking very hard. They need you to rat them out on Valentine's Day.
Some people that they haven't been able to find.
I guess to me, why would today be the day, because I saw a funny Valentine's post, be the day that I rat out my ex?
Should they put that post out every day?
I mean, I guess if they're going to try to militarize exes to
if you're gonna,
fuck over their exes, sure.
I mean, if you're going to put it against like them just doing it on Valentine's Day in a funny, coy way of like, hey.
I don't know. I guess part of it to me is like, I don't buy the idea that it's hard to find people. I don't buy the idea that it's hard to find people. I just, like, I don't get it. Like, how is it, like, the David Hayes incident we had a couple of weeks ago?
There's not a reason we have the, FBI's most wanted list, because it's easy to find people, right?
Okay, so you're talking about the top most wanted people in the United States versus versus some dude who's got an outstanding possession
TBI,
warrant?
and I'm assuming Knox County probably has a similar thing as well, because it's easy to find people. It is not that easy to find people.
Right, you have to wait for them to come to the city-county building to protest the death of somebody during a meeting while you're looking for the new chief of police. That's because he ran for city council. Because it's hard to fucking find people.
You're bringing up a totally...
No, I don't think that's invalid. It goes back to the fucking
I would think that goes to the level of wanted level.
Yes, and I think that's where I started in the diatribe about how ridiculous it is.
Okay.
It's yes, if my ex was a serial rapist,
right,
I'm a dick for not turning him in sooner. Why does a Valentine's Day post make a fucking difference? And why aren't they looking harder for him already? Like, hell, if they're my ex, I'm a known associate. Why aren't they dogging me to help me find him in the first place? To me, this is fishing for soft shit. This is fishing for unpaid parking tickets and possession charges. That's what this is fishing for. This isn't fishing for a fucking murderer. That's what bothers me about it. This isn't real crime stuff that they're chasing down. This is soft little shit that they want to incarcerate more people for. Because if they really cared about actual safety shit, they'd already go find these people.
So why do we have Crime Stoppers?
I don't know.
Why do we have public lines for people to report things that happen? Why do we have Knox County non-emergency lines?
Why do we have people that don't like to talk to cops? Why do we have people killing people on the streets? Why do we have a lot of things? I don't know. Why do we spend as much money on an impotent police force?
No, I mean, what? I don't understand what the fuck you're even saying.
I'm not sure what I'm saying either right now. Those Voodoo Rangers.
We have non-emergency lines, ways that the public can contact the police when they think even the softest of crimes have happened. That is not encouraging people to call by having that access for people to have an outlet to report crimes that happen.
So that existed before this post went up?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. We've had a Knox County non-emergency line just to have something outside of 911 to encourage people to, like, hey, if these small things aren't happening, if it's not an actual emergency, don't call 911. If it's a non-emergency line, call this line. I've called it myself.
I've called non-emergency buddy. I haven't called
it. See, you were knocking on people, and you were being solicited to have people and turn people in just because you didn't like them. I mean, I don't see the logic of having them put something out. It's like, hey, if you know someone with a warrant, because that's going even far beyond. That's not you're seeing a little crime. You know someone that has a warrant out for their arrest.
Okay, what's the most common warrant that exists right now?
No fucking clue.
I don't either. But I bet
why are you even asking me?
I'll bet you it's not murder. I bet you it's not rape. I'll bet you. Actually, I would bet it's possession.
Okay.
So the majority of outstanding warrants are like probably possession, unpaid tickets.
Point being, a person has gone through the judicial system and has an actual court-approved warrant out for their arrest. That this person does not need to be on their own recognizance.
No, it's my fault for not liking the criminal justice system as it stands, and its projection on continuing its process. That's my fault. I don't like what is considered a crime. I laughed with Eric Lutton today when he says victimless crime. It makes me laugh. The idea of a victimless crime. What is a victimless crime?
How did Eric Lutton describe it?
He didn't. We didn't actually. I didn't make him. I forgot. I forgot the rule of AC of definitions.
I thought you laughed at him. I'm sorry.
No, I laughed with him.
Oh.
Because he did the same thing. He did, like, as I'll have to go back and check the episode, but when victimless crime comes up, and especially as a public defender, that's one of those that it's like I understand the law, but it's dumb. Like, that's the impression I got, is that I understand that this is considered illegal, but it's dumb. That's the response that I felt from him. Right. And so, again, I'm running on my assumption that possession or failure to appear are probably top of the list, because we went off at length about bail and how stupid fucking cash bail is. And
there's times, where definitely like a warrant is put out for a bench warrant.
Right, failure to appear.
Right, for failure to appear.
Right. And so, you have a bench warrant because you
Right,
failed
but
to appear for a possession charge.
Right, but a fucking ex isn't going to know that shit. That like, oh, I knew when your court date was. I'm your ex, but I'm going to keep up with when your court date was, and I'm going to know that you didn't show up for your court date.
It depends when you became exes. I could have known that you were supposed to go to court yesterday.
They're still keeping up with when your court date was, and if you in fact did show up for your court, that then they're going to turn around.
If you and I were dating, if you and I were dating, and you got picked up on a possession charge,
that is very unlikely, and in that instance that you're trying to bring.
No, it's not. It's not at all. It is. No, it's not at all unlikely.
They don't keep up with when their fucking court date was. You know how many criminals don't even keep track of when their own court date was, let alone their significant other.
Okay. But again, it's
keep track of knowing when the court date was, and then keep up with, in fact, when, if they ever showed up for it.
But the post is selling the vindictiveness. It's that, so if you and I were dating, and you got picked up on a possession charge, right? And we dated a little bit after that, and you probably told me, but I forgot when your court date was. But I know it's sometime, it's like 3 months out or something like that, maybe 6 months out. And we have a big breakup, and I fucking hate you, and you're the worst person ever, and you broke my heart, and all this kind of bullshit. And then I see a post like this. You know what? Fuck him. Fuck him. I'm going to fuck him up. I don't know if you missed your court date or not. I'm going to call it in. I don't know if you have it actually. I don't know if you have a bench warrant at this point. I don't know if you missed your court date, but I'm going to call it in. And they're going to go pick you up at work, because I know where you work, because we just broke up like a couple weeks ago. They're going to pick you up at work. You're going to get fired. And then they're going to figure out after the fact that, you haven't missed your court date yet. Well, sorry, you lost your job. Go about your business. Don't forget your court date, though. Good luck.
No, I'm confused in your example. They haven't shown up for the court date yet.
Your court date hasn't happened yet, but we broke up a couple weeks ago, but I knew you had a court date coming up.
Right.
And I couldn't remember exactly when it was, but I'm so fucking pissed off at you that I'm going to call the cops and be like, he missed his court date. He's got a bench warrant. Go get him. This is where he works. And they go into your work. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't actually arrest you in the process, but they go into your work and they bother you at work, and then they go and they pull the paperwork. Oh, your court date's next week. I'm sorry we bothered you or whatever. How does it look for you as an employee? What consequences do you have because some vindictive ex read a post and decided to be a bitch about it? You have consequences for that.
So in your scenario, a court date was appointed. The couple
while we were together.
The couple broke up before the court date.
I don't remember.
But
you just told me you had one. I just don't remember when it was.
The jilted ex called the tip line and said, "Hey, he's got a court date coming up."
No.
I
say you missed your court date because I don't remember when you told me it was.
Okay. He may have missed his court date.
No, I say you miss it because I'm pissed.
Okay. The police are told that they missed it. The police are assumed to not have checked any information whatsoever. They go talk to the person.
I mean, that sounds reasonable to me. Sure. We got a tip that this person has a warrant out. Let's go check him out.
Okay. So the police are able to arrest them without a warrant?
No, I backed up. I backed up on that. I backed up on that in my scenario. I said, no, they don't arrest you. They don't take you from your job, but they come bother you at work. How does that look to your boss?
I would assume that the police wouldn't even show up unless there was an actual warrant out for that particular person's arrest.
Okay.
A complaint may be filed that this person may have missed their court date, but I have enough trust in the police that they're not going to waste that time, that before they are actually dispatched to a particular location to investigate a person that may have missed a court date, that they would actually confirm that that person missed their court date before dispatching someone, multiple officers possibly, to that position. Correct? Am I wrong in my thinking?
I don't know. I have no idea how they
because it makes sense in my mind.
I mean, sure.
The dispatch doesn't send people out willy-nilly.
Yeah. How many times have you fucking driven down the interstate?
Saying like a complaint.
How many times have you driven down the interstate and there's 7 cop cars on one pulled over? They might not have been dispatched. I'm fucking bored. Let's go check it out.
There's 7 people there because backup was called.
Is that a fact? You know that? That's procedure?
Yes.
It's not. It's not.
I mean,
I'm in the area.
I don't know that
check it out
100%, but
Oh, okay.
I would say 98% that yes.
So the moral of the story is we just need to have a cop in here, and he can tell us all about procedure and how well everybody follows procedure.
I may be able to get us one in here, but I don't know.
All right. I will keep that in the same file as AC bringing me Gloria. So.
But I mean, and the number of times
and
the number of times
roller.
I've ever been pulled over, I haven't had multiple cars. Actually, no, once. Sorry. Once there was multiple cars behind me, but I was out of state with temporary tags.
And you're a white dude. You're not a threat. Don't worry about it.
I did have a door sticker on my car.
That was it.
And it was a tiny town in the middle of the night that I'm assuming there was nothing else going on. And I did something just barely illegal. And it was all just because I wasn't familiar with the area.
Was like they drive on the wrong side of the road in that town? What? Tell us a story. Come on, tell me a story.
So it was actually, I want to say it was like the first Matrix that ever came out. I was in North Carolina. A friend and I went to go see the movie, and it was like the last showing of it. So we got out at midnight or whatever. Made it back into his little tiny podunk town. Probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I was going to take a left on a road, and they've got kind of concrete barriers depending on different turnoffs. So I went around like the wrong side of the concrete. It's like 5-inch sidewalk type barrier. Apparently I went on the side of it, and I guess that was one cop that saw it. And I realized there was a cop behind me, and we were literally about to turn into my friend's driveway. And then all of a sudden blue lights flashed. But by the time I was all over with, I was like, hey, there's no registration. We just came back from a movie. He's like, oh, where are you guys going? Of course, my friend next to me was like, I live right there.
Mm-hmm. It's my house.
Yeah, but I had temporary tags, which may have let it look suspicious or whatever, and it was 1 o'clock in the morning. But
it's a good thing you weren't
after
a camper.
They finally let us go, there was at least 4 or 5 police cars that drove by, probably because it was everybody on duty in this tiny town in North Carolina, that there was nothing else to do, and they were responding or whatever. But in general, I'm pretty sure that most times cops have the knowledge that it's pointless to pull someone off of whatever else they're doing unless they actually need backup. And don't call for backup on a police stop unless they think there's an actual need for additional backup.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying they called for backup. I never...
I mean, you gave the example of 7 cars or whatever.
Yeah,
and I'm saying that...
They were in the area, or they were driving by and they saw pulled over, so they pulled over with. I'm not saying they were called to be there. I don't even... I'm
saying that's less likely.
You want to talk about the lottery?
What about it?
Well, I mean, you'd post it, or you'd message in the group. I thought it was something I'd thought about prior to you bringing it up. But you said... What did you say?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how that conversation started.
You said, I see more sports betting ads that always obligatory maybe throw in the if you know someone, or if you or somebody you know has a gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line.
All right, but what was before that?
Something about that was actually the post about the Valentine's Day thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure where it came up for you bringing it up.
Well, I was saying that's like the same fucking thing of like soliciting. If you someone you know has a problem, or you or someone you know is committing a crime.
Well, but it's not trying to criminalize the person; it's trying to get them help because they have a gambling problem. Yeah. But my take on my take on not that part of the conversation, but my take on this that I found interesting was that Tennessee Lottery, in their radio and TV ads, at the end of the ad, all it says is "play responsibly."
Right.
Where when Caesar Sportsbook or
I was
MGM,
able to find where they do say that
correct.
Explicitly.
On the Tennessee Lottery page, they do have the red line link thing.
You gotta click a couple things to actually get to.
Right. But,
if you or someone you know has
But what jumps out to me about it is you have to put forth effort to find it on the Tennessee Lottery page, where it's obligated right out front for the sportsbooks page.
Right. Tennessee
And
Lottery
to me, the lottery is the state program, and they want people playing that. They don't really care. They want to put forth as much and whatever pushback. They want to push back on the sports betting one and make that harder for the sports betting companies to do what they do. Or, in the generous version of it, they want to protect and help the public that has a problem with that one, but they don't care if the public has a problem with the lottery. Play your scratchers to death because that helps kids go to college. That's the bottom line of it. That's what it is.
That certainly may be the case.
I'm pretty sure it's exactly the case. The scratchers put money in our coffer as a state. MGM makes money off of this one, so we're going to make them probably. I'll bet you that MGM, anybody that operates a sports book that Tennessee allows, I'll bet you they not only have to put that disclaimer in there, but they have to pay a percentage or an annual fee to the Tennessee Red Line. I bet you that
Tennessee
MGM and the other sports books, what?
Tennessee Red Line?
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
But I'll bet you it's funded by the companies that operate sports books in the state. I'll bet. Which is funny, actually, now that I think about it.
I would agree that there's probably is a percentage of what they earn in the state is allotted back to the state.
No, yeah, they're absolutely taxed
for being able to operate.
No, they're
in
absolutely
the state.
taxed. I think on top of tax, I think there's a specific tax that they have to pay, but on top of the specific tax, they have to fund the Tennessee Red Line directly, separate from the taxes. It's not that their taxes gets pulled and takes that. I bet you that they have.
What is the Tennessee Red Line?
Tennessee Red Line is the gambler, if you have a problem with gambling, call the Tennessee Red Line.
Oh, okay.
That's the help for problematic gamblers. That's available. If you have a problem with gambling, call these people. So it's a social service for gamblers. So, all right, other stuff going on. So I've told you about we do takeout night, right? We shifted it to Saturdays, but we shifted it back to Friday for this week for outstanding reasons. So it was Lily's week to pick, and he picked McDonald's. So I get on the app for McDonald's, and I see the Land, Air, and Sea. They also have a surf and turf. And so it's a Big Mac plus fish fillets. So you get both burger patties, but then a fish fillet on both sides, too, of a Big Mac. And then apparently they also have the Land, Air, and Sea, which one is a fish fillet and one is a chicken patty on the two.
Yeah.
It's a pretty impressive sandwich, I'm not going to lie. I think it's a club. I don't know. What are the rules on that? If there's a layer of bun in between or a layer of bread in between, does it still count as a sandwich? Or do we have to call it a club? What makes a club versus a sandwich?
I don't think there's a direct designation of it.
We need to figure this out. This is a problem.
There's just what has traditionally been a club sandwich, which has
ham, turkey, bacon, cheese, lettuce, tomato.
Right, with extra little
right
3 pieces of bread, essentially.
Right. So the Big Mac is a club, at least on the bread side of the format. That sounds really gross to me. Fish fillet on a Big Mac.
Yeah.
The fish fillet is
I'm pretty
gross.
sure I can count on one hand the times in my life I've ever had a fish fillet.
Yeah. I don't like fish fillets either.
I don't care for tartar sauce, but it was even in.
Just mayonnaise.
I'll eat
relish.
fish sticks. It's not fucking mayonnaise. All right, maybe. I don't know.
It's mayonnaise, pickle relish, and lemon juice. That is what tartar sauce is.
You sure?
Literally, yes.
All right. Maybe it was just McDonald's tartar sauce that I was like, this tastes gross.
What is special sauce?
I've always heard it's close to Thousand Island.
What is Thousand Island dressing?
No idea. Ketchup,
mustard, mayonnaise, pickle relish. It's burger condiments all mixed together.
Where do they get the 1,000 from? Because there's 1,000 different variations of it.
All right, so according to natashaskitchen.com,
wow.
Tartar sauce recipe. This is probably all fancy. Fish sticks, I don't care, just give me the recipe. Mayonnaise, chopped dill pickles, parsley, lemon juice, sugar, black pepper, onion, yeah. So mayonnaise, chopped dill pickles, lemon juice. Mayonnaise, pickle relish, lemon.
Okay.
I'm saying that's what tartar sauce is.
All right.
Thousand Island is mayonnaise, mustard, ketchup. That's why it's that weird pink color.
It's ketchup.
It's a ketchup. Turns that whole thing pink. But yes, fish fillets are gross. McDonald's is gross. Like that's the worst part about it is. So little man picks McDonald's, and I'm like, oh, okay. So go pick up McDonald's, and I stop at Chick-fil-A on the way back, and I get me and the Mrs. Chick-fil-A, and so the adults have Chick-fil-A, and the kids have McDonald's. Yeah. McDonald's is terrible. Like, it's gotten worse. Like, it was a weird, interesting conversation. Me and the missus and the kids sitting around the table, eating our Chick-fil-A and McDonald's at the same time. McDonald's, to me, at this point, is living off nostalgia. They offer nothing. Their service is terrible. Their perceived quality of food is terrible. Like, the quality's down. I mean, the quality's just not good anymore. They serve shit. Like, I mean, I think one of the biggest issues McDonald's has in the grand scheme of things is their fries are amazing. Only if you get them
fresh, yes.
Right now. And so picking up a to-go order and going home, their fries are terrible. Like, and I mean, to be fully honest about it, I did the proper dad thing. I stop at the McDonald's, I pick it up, I stick my hand in the bag, I grab a handful of fries, and they were okay. Fresh out of the bag.
Right.
Walking out the door. They were okay. By the time they got home, they were awful. But even fresh, they were awful. Or they were okay. They were only okay. Like, they don't even have that anymore. Like, McDonald's is dying to me. Like, you couldn't, I mean, that's just a stupid thing to say, but I was like, you couldn't pay me to buy McDonald's stock at this point. I can't figure out, I can't imagine a way that they're going to save that. They're going to have to go the way of Hardee's.
And
do you remember when Hardee's was everything? Like, they had everything on their menu. They had the hugest menu in town.
No.
They had fried chicken, like KFC style fried chicken.
Yeah, it started on chicken tenders.
No, they had KFC style fried chicken. Like, they had fried chicken buckets. Yeah, they had the hugest menu around. And then they did a big restructuring, and that's when they got to the thick burger thing and that kind of thing. And they got good again. Like, Hardee's is good now.
Well, McDonald's did a whole big thing like with their quarter pounders was like all beef patties, or they changed up.
Yeah, but it's
the
all beef TM patties.
Oh.
And I mean, the patty is made of all cow. Yes, they're not good. They're not very good, tasty. They're just not good anymore. And maybe it's the rest of the world is past them. They're just not keeping up.
I don't think they taste a whole lot different than at least what I remember having 20 years ago.
Maybe you're probably right, but against Hardee's and Burger King right now, the actual piece of meat is miles apart. Just they're just better. Burger King and Hardee's are better burgers.
I have been curious about the I guess KFC's been offering they call it like the green bucket or something, but it's like plant-based chicken tenders that I guess are in like their big KFC bucket.
It's so dumb. Like, I don't like. It's cool if you want to be a vegetarian or a vegan or whatever. That's cool. Then just eat your plants. Why are you making chicken flavored plants? Doesn't make sense to me. I have no issue. I have zero issue if you think that factory farming or just killing an animal to eat your food, I mean, that's invalid, period, in the vegan argument, but we'll just pretend like it exists for a second. If you don't like the idea of something dying so that you can eat, great. That's fine. I'm happy for you. Whatever.
I mean, I would assume it's just to broaden their market or to get people that, have eaten.
We're eating.
They eaten chicken and burgers in the past, and then all of a sudden they said, "I don't want to eat that shit no more. Give me some plant flavored chicken." But I still want to eat
some chicken flavored plant.
Yeah.
Then just don't eat it. I mean, that's fine. Like, just eat your veggies. That's great.
I mean, they're opening themselves to an extra, maybe a little bit of a market.
I get it on Burger King side. You're right. I get it on Burger King or KFC side. I get that. Yeah. I get them trying to cater to that market. But if you're at that market, why on the fucking planet would you go to KFC? Like, what? I mean, I don't, like, that's the part I don't get. The only reason that it sells...
It basically people that feel like they're eating a little bit healthier. Like, well, I eat KFC all the time. I'm only eating, like, fried, plant-based...
Right. It's still fried, but it's fried
meat concoction or vegetarian concoction.
It's fried soy-based something or other. And I think that's what it is. I think that's the reality, and that's the fucked up part, is that they're selling health, which is false as fuck. Because even in like the Impossible Burger and stuff, and a real burger patty, and the way your body processes and does a real burger patty versus like a Impossible Burger.
Yeah.
The Impossible Burgers are terrible for you.
Really?
It's all oils. It's all like vegetable oils and shit like that. That's how they get the meat feel and flavor. It's a bunch of like vegetable avocado and other vegetable oils and beet oil and all sorts of weird stuff. It's all like it's all like oils. Like it's most plant oils all squeezed together into a reddish thing. They're not good for you, healthy. They're not healthy for you.
I think you can turn oils into a thing, but I kind of see what you're saying.
Okay, well, let's look it up. Well, you can't look it up with me because your thing's on.
Well, I mean, it's some bullshit like basketball on now. What I wanted to watch is over. What the fuck? Philadelphia 76ers, their jerseys just say Phila.
Yeah, what up?
Yeah, why not?
Philadelphia's a long word. The Impossible Burger is made from soybean concentrate, coconut oil, sunflower oil, potato protein, methyl cellulose, yeast extract, salt, gums, and water and additives. Ooh, includes vitamin B12, zinc, vitamin B6.
That's right.
B1 and niacin. Those are good for you. I mean, so anyway, soy protein concentrate, coconut oil, sunflower oil, potato protein. Those are top 4.
Okay.
So that's the majority of the actual product.
Look up what's in the actual burger of it, in the real burger.
What is
the unimpossible?
What is in a ground beef patty? It's gonna be ground beef and fat.
Well, to give it a direct comparison, I guess what is in a Whopper patty? I guess I'm assuming that's what it's replacing would be the Whopper patty or whatever.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to look that up. It's beef. It may be 80-20. It may be 73-27. But it's cow meat and fat. That's it.
Think so?
I mean, maybe salt. Ingredients in a Whopper.
I wouldn't say there's a lot more to it.
The ingredients of a Whopper are beef, and everything else is going to be on the list is going to be on an Impossible Whopper. What is Burger King meat made of? Let's see if that 100% beef. No fillers, no preservatives, no additives, no nonsense. I mean, it's all cow, is what that is. I mean, it doesn't mean it's all good parts of cow. It's just all cow. Could be some hooves, could be some tongues, could be some nose, could be some brains, but it's all cow.
All right.
Going back to the start of that, I don't care. Like, as a person, if you're a person who doesn't want to eat meat, I don't care. Good for you. Enjoy that life. It's fine. But why would you want to eat fake chicken or fake beef? Why would you want to eat a plant-based product that is pretending to be a meat? Because all that says is that you want to eat meat, and that you're trying really hard to not, and so you're lying to yourself by eating fake meat.
I mean, some of it could be that perception of I'm eating a plant-based versus, what is typically be considered, steroid-fed chicken in order to create those lovely, luscious chicken
then
nuggets.
But if that's your issue, then go get, free-range chickens. It's an option that exists. You can go get those. Antibiotic-free, which is by law for fuck ever. But you can get steroid-free.
All right, we talked about that before. There's very gray areas as to what can be considered organic and free-range.
Sure. But how is, nothing about...
To where, as it's advertised to most people and the way they take it in as their understanding is it is plant-based. They're like, oh, okay, well, I like chicken nuggets, but, I'm not eating the hormone-fed chicken.
Right. I'm just eating soy protein extract with sunflower oil and pretending that's chicken for my brain.
Right. Which, may or may not be better.
Soy
I'm
is...
not really sure.
Soy specifically is one of the most GMO'd products on the planet.
A soybean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make so much shit out of soy. So,
well, but I'm just soybean plant itself is one of the most genetically modified on the planet.
Right, but just because something's genetically modified doesn't necessarily.
Right, but I understand.
I'm
adding another layer to the weirdness of people's eating habits of the GMO thing.
Right.
Not to, and that in no way includes the conversation about what it takes to run a soy farm and how many things die in the process of harvesting soy in and of itself.
Talking about insects?
Oh, and birds and rabbits and all sorts of little animals. There's a cool video. It's on YouTube. I can't remember what the title of it was. But essentially, it's watching the buzzards follow the combine, and it's a wheat field. And so it's this combine going through the wheat field harvesting wheat, and it's the buzzard just following it because every pass or two,
field mice or something.
Yeah, there's all sorts of shit dying in the process. But hey, I don't eat it directly, so I guess it's okay. I can feel good about myself. Realistically, the only way you're going to be a vegan, like an actual vegan, is if you grow the shit in your backyard. Period. There's no way you're going to the store and buying vegan bread. It's not possible. An animal died in that process. Guaranteed.
There's no guarantee. You could not say with 100%.
Right. But I could say with more certainty that an animal died than didn't. And that if you're going to, mathematically, if you're going to buy more than one loaf of bread, then yes, I could say that with 100% accuracy. One loaf of bread might have managed to pull it off. But on the scale of your lifespan and being a vegan, I can say with 100% certainty that you as a vegan have killed animals to eat the way you eat.
Do they differentiate insect and animal?
A vegan?
Yeah.
I don't know. Because absolutely, if insects are included, there's no fucking way. I will lean super hard on that 100% guarantee. Right. But actual mammal or bird is a 99.99995. Something died to get you that piece of bread. Guaranteed.
It's not a fun topic.
I don't know. It's an interesting. It's a weird topic to me because I'm down with it. Like, I don't know. Susan's right behind you. One thing died, and I've eaten a lot from it. But just one.
Right.
Not a bunch. That's not true. A bunch of other shit dies with all the other food I eat. But
how much died in the process of getting Susan?
Just Susan. I guess multiple deer had to die to make the processor profitable for the people that run it. And, I didn't hit anything on the drive to and back.
There's mosquitoes abound.
I definitely killed bugs. I kill bugs all the time.
There we go.
I don't know. All right, one last topic. Give me something fun. Something fun to talk about that's positive. It's happy. The Olympics are on.
Positive.
I don't care if it's positive or not.
Oh.
but something to talk about.
I don't know. I've still been on my soft set thing kick for a while, watching some of those videos, and it just astounds me.
Which one?
Huh?
What video?
Sovereign Citizens.
Oh.
And it's just been astounding.
I don't know. I guess to me,
honestly, I think that you would agree with some of what they say. I hope with just only a slim amount of what they say.
All right, so to adjust a stance, like it's not even to adjust a stance, just to clarify a stance over time in my libertarianism or whatever, I would adjust the label to pragmatic. I understand the reality of what is. I'm not going to pretend like the Ancapistan can exist tomorrow. We can't just all of a sudden go to the libertarian euphoria that I see in my brain. I acknowledge the existence of what is. And so
that's where I think where some of the breakdown is they have in their mind something that's already established that isn't a fact of matter whatsoever.
But I mean, I think it gets down to the understanding of the Constitution versus the rough phrasing bastardization of the Constitution that we live in now. We are not in the same world by a number of factors of when the Constitution was written.
Right.
You know, we can argue about intent and what they were thinking at the time and this, that, and the other. And sure, if you want to get down to the brass tacks of it, that everything's supposed to be within the Constitution, that sovereign citizen thing actually makes sense. But we're not really within the bounds of the Constitution anymore.
How so?
Well, because a law written that's not followed isn't a law. Or a law that isn't written but is followed is a law. Things that aren't supposed to exist that do, you got to deal with what exists. You know, so like we talk about like what's your favorite government organization that I always kind of make fun of you for? The Environmental Protection, EPA.
EPA.
You know, EPA exists but has no teeth, so they don't really exist. They can talk, but they can't do. So all the things that the EPA wants to do, they don't have the teeth to do. So their existence is kind of futile. It doesn't matter because they can't do anything about it. And so a law that is written, which there's plenty of them, we joke about it all the time. What is it? What yours that you can't tie your alligator to the hitching post, right? Isn't that one of your favorites?
I think that was one thing that I read that was a Knoxville. Yeah,
I'm just saying it's a law that it's
weird ordinance.
Right. We have a lot of these laws that exist, but nobody follows them, and nobody upholds those laws. So the fact that the law exists doesn't mean that it's real. It's the laws that are enforced that are real. And so that's the world we live in. That's the pragmatic. I'm going to look at this realistically in front of me. It doesn't matter that these laws aren't constitutional. There's plenty of laws that exist right now that are enforced that are not constitutional. But the fact that they exist and are enforced means I have to go by the rules and say so.
What laws do we have in effect that are unconstitutional?
I mean, there's lots of stuff. I mean, specifically, like the easy one was the 10th Amendment. It says if it's not specifically in the Constitution, it's up to the states to decide. There is nothing specifically in the Constitution about abortion. It's the easiest one. It's the easiest one on this topic to talk about. There is no specific anything in the Constitution that says anything about abortion.
Right.
And by the rules of by the 10th Amendment, it says we don't. The federal government has zero oversight on the idea of abortion because it doesn't exist in the Constitution.
Right. But we have case law. So we
case
have
law going to
so
what?
we have
Case law that goes to the Supreme Court.
So we have law.
The Supreme Court
case law that goes to precedent.
Case law from the Supreme Court.
Established law.
Case law from the Supreme Court that goes
correct. Which is what's the Supreme Court?
It's the top court in the land.
Okay. So that would be the essential final finding ground for.
So okay, what's the point?
For law? Yes, yes or no? Yes or
So
no?
if the 10th
yes
Amendment,
or no?
I don't. Your yes or no's are dumb. Stop it.
No.
Yes, the
This is not
court is
stupid.
at the top of the law of the land, but it doesn't.
Okay, is that why they call it Supreme Court?
If the Supreme Court makes a decision on something, it doesn't go into the Constitution.
Correct.
They don't rewrite the Constitution because the Supreme Court said so.
Correct. To make an amendment requires other parties.
If the 10th Amendment exists,
of the three-party system.
If the 10th Amendment exists, that says the three-branch system, two-party, three branches.
Sorry,
if the 10th Amendment exists that says the states are allowed to decide on things that are not explicitly stated in the Constitution. Abortion law is not explicitly stated in the Constitution. The states are allowed to decide. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. That's not within the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. The jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is to the Constitution. Constitution doesn't say so. The Supreme Court's response would be, Constitution doesn't say so. The state has the right to do what they want. That is how it was written. That's not how it functions. And I agree with you on that. Case law exists. I 100% agree with that. I'm not trying to say yes or no to that part of the thing. But the way the Constitution was written...
You just don't want to say no.
You're correct. But the way the Constitution was written was to say that it doesn't matter. The case law of the Supreme Court cannot change the Constitution. The Supreme Court is supposed to uphold what the Constitution says. And the 10th Amendment says that if the Constitution doesn't say so...
Not to uphold, to interpret.
Okay. Well... Either way, on the abortion topic, the Constitution doesn't say shit about abortion. So what are you interpreting on a thing that doesn't say anything about it?
Abortion is not in constitutional law. There's not been a amendment made to the Constitution regarding abortion. So I don't know why you want to keep bringing up the Constitution and constitutionality of abortion.
I'm not trying to talk about a constitutionality of abortion. I'm trying to talk about states' rights. I'm trying to talk about the sovereign citizen. This came out of the sovereign citizen conversation.
Right.
And the sovereign citizen the good ones at least are trying to play by the constitutional rules. Constitutional rules say that if it's not written in the Constitution,
no, I'm sorry, sovereign citizens are not trying to play by the constitutional
maybe
rules.
They're asshats. It doesn't matter. The continuation of the conversation we're having is that the Supreme Court, or rather, that the states are supposed to have the right to do what they want with that is not explicitly stated in the Constitution. That is the 10th Amendment.
Okay.
But that's not the world we live in. And so that's the pragmatic thing that I was trying to talk about. The pragmatics of it is, as much as the Constitution says that certain things are up to the states, and this is why abortion came up, because you asked, well, what certain things are up to the states? And I threw abortion as an example, because I know that it is specifically not mentioned in the Constitution.
Did I ask what's up to the states?
Yeah. Do you want to go back and listen?
Not right now. Maybe later.
Okay.
I remember saying, like, well, what do the states have to say about that?
Well, no, you were saying, well, like, what's something that the states are doing in the Constitution? It doesn't matter.
Okay.
My point in the rant.
Yes.
My point in the rant is that the Constitution, the states are supposed to exist as unique special entities that do as they please, unless it is specifically written in the Constitution that they can't. Okay. Things like civil rights, things like gender equalities, the women's right to vote, those kind of things are ensured by the federal Constitution to make sure the states follow suit. Those things are and so the states have to follow those things. But the idea that we are in this, like, that's the weird thing that I can't figure out, is that this idea of this unified country in completion is what I get really lost in. Because we're not. We were never designed to be. That was the point. The point is we are our separate little subsects. We have our little differences state to state to state. Right. And we're supposed to encourage and enjoy that fact and expand upon that fact. But just a few basic little things are supposed to be the unifying things that we all agree on that are the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's my rant about I'm not sure what anymore.
Okay. My thing is that I guess maybe we have a different understanding of what a sovereign citizen is. My understanding of it is these people that claim to be sovereign citizens do not abide by and do not recognize any sort of judicial understanding of how, I would hope that you and I understand how court systems and how the legislative and judicial branches work. Well, they consider themselves outside of that. Literally. They don't consider themselves citizens.
Right, I get that.
They literally file paperwork legally trying to consider themselves, it's like state nationals. It's some weird thing.
I am my own state, and I could be who I could do what I want within my own state, which is me and anywhere that I am.
Right.
As I please.
They pull bullshit that's like, I'm not in the state of Tennessee, I'm on the state of Tennessee.
I mean, and again, like there's part of me that gets the premise is that I am an individual.
How
what?
How do you identify that with that?
I am an individual, right?
Yes, you are an individual.
And so, all right. So to take the libertarian play on this, all right.
Okay.
So depending on what these people were pulled over for, that starts these conversations. That's how all these videos are. It's always getting pulled over for something, right? Most of these sovereign city videos, they're getting pulled over. It's almost always in their car.
Some of them, so yeah.
What right? Okay, so let's pretend. Let's just throw out what the world is that we live in. Let's just pretend for a second. Let's pretend for a second that the state of Tennessee doesn't exist. That the United States government doesn't exist. Let's just pretend we are people out in a piece of land. And that there is no government that we all agree that exists, okay? Let's just pretend that for a second.
There's a lot in that, but okay, go ahead.
Like 1850 Arizona. We're out in fucking Yuma, Arizona, out in the 1850s. There's really no government in general is a very loose concept. Nobody really knows what's going on.
Pretty sure at that time they were already considered a territory.
Oh fuck! That's a specific. I'm not just trying to throw it. Fine. I'm sorry for throwing.
I'm sorry. In this magical realm where no country has established jurisdiction over this area. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So you and I are walking down the street, and some other person walks up to us and says, "You're under arrest."
Okay.
What do you do?
It's going to depend on the circumstances, but if I was in the knowledge that I was in an area of no jurisdiction, I'd probably say go fuck yourself.
Okay. So they have a cool looking uniform on and maybe a shiny little star on their chest.
Okay.
Same thing?
No.
Even though you know you're in a place that has no jurisdiction, they just have a sweet suit on?
Yes.
Okay, so some guy walks up to you, just off the street. You have no idea who they are. They just have a decent outfit on and a metal star on their chest.
Yes. If I was in full knowledge that I was in an area that nobody can have any kind of claim to or jurisdiction over or lawful accordance of anything whatsoever.
And some guy in a suit walks up.
Yeah.
It tells you you're under arrest. You say, okay?
Yes.
Why?
I'm sorry. No. Sorry. I'm under arrest. No, I'm not under arrest.
Okay. So.
If under the pretext that I just stated, yes.
Right. So the premise being that I don't acknowledge the jurisdiction by my maybe poor interpretation of the Constitution of some other guy in a suit that has a shiny star on his chest walking up to me and stopping me from walking down the street.
Okay.
I don't acknowledge your right to do what you're doing.
Okay.
I acknowledge that you exist, and I acknowledge that you have a tag that says that you have the county and this, that, and the other. I acknowledge all those things. But in my understanding of this thing, I don't think you have the right to do what you're doing.
Okay.
Just because you have a star on your chest.
All right.
I might be wrong. But the idea that we just automatically assume they're right is, I guess, the problem that I have. And why I have a little bit of sympathy for the idea of the sovereign citizen. Because we're not anymore. Like, The idea that we were supposed to be the individualist nation. That we have a common good, but we are the individuals. And we go out and we take care of ourselves. And we take care of those around us. That was what we were supposed to be built on. That was the idea that we were supposed to be doing.
So.
That, especially if I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong, I feel like that's an understandable question. How do you have the right to stop me? Who gave you this authority to stop me from my progress? It's the same as the Aubrey story. Who gave those dad, son, and other guy the right to stop Aubrey from walking down the street? Nobody. But they did it anyway. Who gives you the authority to stop me from what I'm doing, especially when I'm not doing anything wrong? And then it comes down to the question of the interpretation of doing wrong. That's really what it comes down to. It's whose interpretation of doing wrong is the one that matters. And the idea that the state is the ultimate bottom line of what right and wrong is to me, the problem.
Why?
Because who are they? They're just fucking people too. They're just the same as that random guy in a suit with a star on his chest walking up to us in our governmentless land. They're not anybody special. Who gave them the right to stop me?
Sorry, who is they and what you just said is they?
I mean, I guess it's the police and your sovereign citizen argument.
The police.
I didn't do anything wrong. What gives you the right to stop me?
Okay.
Who gets to decide what's right and wrong?
The judiciary.
Okay, who is the judiciary? They're just fucking people. They're just people with robes on instead of suits with a thing on their chest.
Right.
They're all fucking people.
Right. Yeah. They're just random people
No, this
selected.
is the
Like,
same, like,
hey,
this is-
you're gonna be a judge. You'll be a cop.
They
are.
They're
You'll
just
be a
fucking people.
prosecutor. Just eeny, meeny, miny. Okay. Yeah. You're that person.
Yeah. More or less.
They're not just randomly selected
Okay.
to establish law.
You're right.
That
This judge has been a judge before. He's been a judge before. He's been a judge before. Okay.
I don't understand. Like,
I don't like the idea. Okay, so I don't know. Like, who gets to tell you what to do? Who's allowed? Who do you give permission to tell you what to do with your life?
I give police permission to tell me what to do legally by law that is established and has been legislatively approved by the people that I elect.
Mm-hmm. And do the people that you elect do what you ask them to do?
Not all the time, no.
Okay. So the people that you elect, how often do you vote? Every time?
I've voted once in the past probably 10 years.
Okay. So more than likely, people that you didn't elect
Okay.
get to make laws about what you get to do.
Okay.
And then they get to appoint people or hire people
It's not about me.
to tell you what to do.
Right.
To stop you from doing things that you're doing when there's no victim in the conversation.
Don't give me this fucking victim bullshit.
What's wrong with the victim bullshit?
I've seen this all too often where it's like, well, what is the state of Tennessee? Who is the victim here? Is the state of Tennessee the victim? I would like to address my victim.
So, all right, fine. Okay, that's fine.
The state of Tennessee is not a person.
So
a person, there's been no crime committed unless there's someone that's been...
I agree that there is no crime if there is no victim. Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so you go speeding down the road. There's no victim.
Uh-huh.
There's no victim.
Yeah.
There's no crime.
There's no victim.
crime for driving and speeding.
There's no victim. There's no crime.
Seriously?
Sure.
Fuck you. I'm sorry. Fuck you.
Let's go to what possession? You got some pot in your pocket?
Should we just legalize everything?
Yeah.
There's no victim.
Sure.
I've stolen from a company. Who's the victim? Who's the victim?
The company's the victim.
Oh, company's not a person.
People own the company. Those people are victims.
But the company's incorporated, so there's no victim.
The people that own the company, the people that own the company are victims.
A corporation can't be a person. There's no victim.
I'm pretty sure by law, corporations are companies. It doesn't matter. There are people that own that company.
Are they a person?
There are people that own that company, and they would be victims, yes.
Okay, so the incorporation is a person.
No, the people that own the company are victims.
They're not an entity.
No, stop it. You're jumping. You're making a leap that doesn't make sense.
This is exactly what sovereign citizens do.
Okay, so you're making a leap that doesn't make sense. A corporation is not a person. Fine, we can have that whole fucking separate argument there. But those are victims because you stole from the victim of the people that own that company, the people that work for that company. Those are victims.
A corporation is not a crime. They're not a victim. They're not a person.
That doesn't. Okay, fine. If that's the sovereign citizen argument, then that's a stupid argument. There is a victim in that crime. Give me a real crime that's there.
So speeding is not a crime?
It is a crime technically.
Okay.
But there's no victim.
But there's no victim. So it should not be a crime?
I don't think so.
Why?
What do you mean why?
Why should speeding be a crime?
Did I hurt you? Is there a victim? I mean, that's really it's a stupid question, but after that whole diatribe you just went down, but who's the victim if I'm speeding?
Is that your whole premise? So I can do whatever I want as long as I don't harm a person.
Give me an example where it makes sense that that's wrong. I can smoke pot. I can do heroin. I can do crack. Nobody else is getting hurt. Why is it a crime? I can speed down the road. I didn't run anybody off the road. I didn't hit anybody. I didn't run into anybody. I didn't do any damage to property. Now, if I'm speeding and it causes a wreck, sure, that's a crime. Because I broke the fucking retaining wall. I hit somebody else. That's a crime. I should have damages for that. But if I go 180 or 75 or 70 or whatever the fuck it is, and nothing happens, what's the problem? Who did I hurt? Where's the crime? If there's no victim, there's no crime. What? I pissed off the state? The state didn't want me to do that. That's the crime. The state was not happy. Karen's mad because I sped past her. Ooh, sorry, Karen. I didn't mean to offend you with my speed. Yeah, I'm of the. There's no victim. There's no crime. That's the stance I will stand on pretty hard.
All right.
Lying to somebody and taking their money, that's a crime.
Why?
Because there's a victim.
Why?
Because I lied to him. That's a crime.
Oh, because there's a victim.
There's a victim. Possession? Drug abuse? That's not a crime. Stupid. Why are people in jail right now for owning plants? Lots of people in jail. Especially when like fucking 36 states now. I think Mississippi just passed. We're up to 37 states have legal weed of some level. Tennessee, you still go to jail if you got a fucking gram of shit in your pocket.
Yeah.
Because why? Because somebody said so?
We should just be able to just obfuscate any kind of law we feel is unjust.
We should be real careful about laws that we let exist that aren't.
We let exist.
Yeah, we let exist. We let the fact that the state of Tennessee...
But they are actual laws, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The fact that we let them exist...
We are expected to abide by them if we are within their jurisdictions.
I mean, I think proper civil disobedience says no. Says no. Maybe that's the way we fix it. And say, fuck you. I'm going to smoke my weed. Suck it. You can't arrest us all. It's good civil disobedience. It's proper old school protest.
How does that go through in the court system?
You go to jail.
Oh, because you are breaking an established law.
So the fact that it's established makes it right. Makes it okay. We should abide by bullshit. Because it's established.
And if it's wrong, we have avenues to...
Apparently we don't.
Appeal it.
Apparently we don't, because like
70, we don't have appeals process?
70% of this country is okay with weed, and it's still federally illegal.
You're taking this on a totally different fucking topic.
No, I haven't. The idea that there's
you're narrowing in on fucking weed for some weird fucking reason.
I'm picking one that's an easy one that's a victimless crime that does no damage, not even to the fucking user themselves. that's still somehow federally illegal. Because there's no victim, but it fucking matters. Why? I don't know. Because it makes money, because we wanted to make paper instead of hemp paper. I don't know I don't know why. Because we decided that this one's bad.
All right. So
but opioids are good.
Someone I've been trying to think of a great example, and it's the best thing I've come up with so far with the speeding. Like, oh, there's nobody that could be harmed.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So someone driving on the road, you pull them over for swerving because they've been drinking.
Uh-huh.
No one's been hit yet.
Uh-huh.
There's no harm to anyone yet.
Yeah.
Should they still get a DUI?
Nope.
No. Gotcha.
I mean, by the law that's written, yes, because they are driving under the influence. Sure.
Okay, so by the law, if someone's speeding, they should get a speeding ticket because that's the law.
Right, because the law
Yes?
that exists, yes, but I don't agree that the law should exist.
Okay.
I don't know what do you want me to say? I didn't hurt anybody. What's the matter?
I don't know what you expect out of this fucking society and your worldview.
I don't know what you expect. You're the one that expects the worst. You're the one that assumes you're the one that assumes that everybody is incapable of making their own decisions. That is your assumption, is that we need the state to come in and enforce the decisions that we all agree on, instead of you as an individual. Go out, live your life, make your own decisions, deal with the consequences of your decisions, whether they're good or bad.
Okay, so deal with your consequences of driving and breaking a law that is established. Yes, you have the choice to make a decision to live within the world that you live in.
Right, because you are too stupid.
If you do not want to abide by the fucking rules, you get out of that jurisdiction of the fucking rules. If you're not a goddamn American, get out of fucking America.
I don't know how. Okay, sure, get out of America. Because you were too stupid to make the right decision for yourself. Because you were too stupid to decide that 80 is too fast because we said 70. That is what the law says. You were too dumb to decide how fast to drive, so we're going to tell you how fast to drive. You were too dumb to decide to use your turn signal, so we're going to tell you have to. You're too dumb. That's what the law says. You're too fucking dumb. That's what we're talking about here.
What the law fucking says.
Yes, it does. That's what the law is that if you don't do what we say and we think is the right thing to do because you're stupid, we're going to punish you for it. And the only way to teach stupid people is to punish them. That is what victimless crime is. It's you're too dumb to make the right decisions for your life. That's what they are. That's all they all are. You're too dumb to realize that driving 100 on a highway is too fast. So we're going to tell you how to drive. Forget the fact that, I don't know, you're Mario fucking Andretti and you can drive 100 miles an hour all fucking day and put nobody in danger. I don't know that. You don't know that, but the law says so. So fuck you, Mario Andretti. You're too dumb to drive 100 miles an hour. That's what the law is on these particulars that we're talking about. Grand scheme of things, hell, I mean, realistically, nobody's too dumb to think that murdering people is wrong. Some people do it anyway, and yeah, they should be punished. But speeding, driving under the influence, I don't know. Smoking pot, doing heroin, I don't know. I don't know that I'm smart enough to make that decision for you. And I sure as shit know that politicians aren't smart enough to make that decision for all of us. That's the point I'm trying to get to. Is that the assumption that the other is too stupid to make their own decision, that's our fault. That is our fault. The idea that out there is too dumb to make their own decisions for their lives. That is what law is.
So you're given the option to make your own choice, but you expect no recourse.
No, I said you deal with the consequences. I said that phrase exactly.
What consequence would you have if there's no law establishing that what you're doing?
If I drive 100 miles an hour and I run you over walking down the street,
right?
I fucking pay the consequences. I have some sort of dealings with the fact that I fucking killed you.
Well, no, because it was okay for you to drive 100, right?
It was the 100 miles an hour is not the point. I killed you driving my car. That's the crime.
Right.
And I should deal with a crime of killing you with my car. The 100 miles an hour is secondary to that, at best. I'm driving my car.
Okay.
If I run you over with my car, whether it's going 10 or 10,000 miles an hour, I ran you over with my car. That's my fault. I was operating the vehicle.
So if the general legislation has a moral obligation to the rest of the constituents to say that if you drive this speed, which we have scientific proof that says if you drive this speed, you have the available cognizance to be able to stop.
Who has the available cognizance?
A driver.
An average driver?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll go back to my example. Mario Andretti is not an average driver.
Okay.
He could drive down these roads.
All right. Is everyone at Mario Andretti?
No.
Okay. Well, I was wondering because we should make a law, compared on Mario Andretti, right?
Right. Because there's Mario Andretti and there's Corky from McDonald's.
Okay.
There's a whole range of people. There are people that can't drive 30 fucking miles an hour that get to drive.
I agree.
Okay. So why do we pick an arbitrary number of 50 for this road? Because Mario Andretti could drive it at fucking 120 and Corky can't drive it at 20.
Because we make a reasonable understanding.
Okay. A reasonable understanding of everybody's...
of what a quote-unquote normal person... Yes, and at some point we do have to actually put as to what a quote-unquote normal person could perceive. We have the ability to what most cars, if you hit the brakes,
right,
that they have a general understanding or a general distance in which they can come to a stop. Mm-hmm. So we said, hey, if you're going down this road, there's crosswalks, and you happen to run into a red light, that if you're going within a certain speed, you still have the ability to hit the brakes with a reasonable person that has the perception time to see a yellow light and like, oh, I need to stop. So on a certain road, we have a limit in which we allow people to drive to where we still have actual enforceable law that said, there's a light that says you need to fucking stop. And we don't need you doing 120 miles an hour right before you come up to a red light because you cannot come to a stop.
Okay.
So no, you cannot do whatever the fuck you want on a goddamn road just because you feel like I can drive better.
You do whatever the fuck you want?
You have no problem being pulled over for accessing a established speed limit.
I have lots of problems with getting pulled over for it. That's the point of the conversation.
But you have no problem with breaking an actual established law for someone going over an established speed limit, yes?
Because who gets to establish the law? And what is their criteria for establishing said law? They're just fucking people too, man. They're just other fucking people. I don't tell you what to do. Do I? Have I ever told you what to do?
Yeah.
Well, I'm technically your boss. That's a separate thing. Generally speaking, I don't tell you how to drive to work. I just tell you when you need to be there. Right?
All right.
Who am I to tell you what to do? And who am I to tell anybody else what to do? I'm sure as shit going to be pissed off if somebody does something stupid and does damage. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to go out and drive 120 miles an hour and you fucking run off the road and plow over my mailbox, you owe me a new mailbox at minimum. I agree with that. If you come down my street and drunk as shit and run into my fucking house, you got to fix my shit. That's on you. You made the decision to do what you did.
Okay.
Deal with it. Deal with the consequences of it. It's not my place to tell you what to do. It's the only place where I feel comfortable telling you what to do is when you did the damage. I didn't do the damage. I didn't do a damage here or there and anywhere else. I'm not okay with the idea. Like this is something in the grand scheme of things. We went way along. Some in the grand scheme of things I'm really trying to figure out how to articulate is that we're in a place right now, especially with the partisanship of shit that's going on. We're in this place right now where there are groups of people who feel like they are comfortable telling other people how to live. Broad strokes how to live. And not only comfortable telling people how to live, but feel like it's their obligation to do so. In the world that we live in this country that we live in right now, there are people that are okay with saying, you're wrong and you're stupid, do what I say. And that premise is so prevalent right now, it freaks me out. It scares the shit out of me in the long term of the country that we live in right now. is that it's a hard left version and it's a hard right version. There's two sides of it. It's not a unique one or the other.
That's where I would say that's exactly what I see the sovereign citizens doing. That's why the FBI consider themselves a terrorist organization.
Are they organized? I didn't realize they were organized. But the idea, the problem with the problem with saying okay to the premise of one or the other is that at some point one or the other is going to have the power. And if you're not part of one or the other, you're going to be on the soft side of that, where you're getting told what to do with your life. And I think that's why the partisanship has gotten so out of hand currently, is the idea of if I don't vote for Trump, Hillary's going to be the president, and Hillary's going to do some terrible, terrible shit. The idea if I don't vote for Biden, Trump's going to be president again, and we're going to continue down this path of death. The idea that those people have the power to change how we are allowed to live our lives is the problem. And if we don't take that power out of their hands and take responsibility for our own lives, then we're going to continue down to a narrow and narrow path of how we are allowed to live our lives. That's my problem. Yes, extreme examples of what we're throwing out tonight. But the extreme examples are because it's going to get there if we don't stop it in where we're doing right now, with what we're doing right now. If we don't stop the way we're moving in this hyper-left, hyper-right, at some point we're going to have a hyper-left everything. And that hyper-left is going to shut everything down that isn't hyper-left. And we're going to have to live inside that group. It's the same version of a hyper-right. The hyper-right's going to swing back because we still have to vote, hopefully. And that hyper-right's going to swing back, and they're going to do everything they fucking can to shut down everything on the left because the right wants to keep and the left wants to keep. And this whole fucking swing thing that we've been living in is going to get worse and worse and worse. That's what we're watching happen. And it scares the shit out of me. And it only scares the shit out of me because we are abdicating our own personal responsibilities to these other groups to do it for us. We want a hard left or a hard right wants to control the other. And for those of us in the middle, we are left suffering of not fitting into either. And that's what we're dealing with right now that freaks me the fuck out. And that's why a sovereign citizen premise that says, stop letting these people tell you how you're allowed to live is a big fucking deal to me.
No, what scares me about sovereign citizens is they do not consider themselves a part of this system whatsoever. They're outside of it. They're literally, as it's stated, sovereign citizens.
Right, I get it.
The laws do not apply to them whatsoever.
I get it.
So they literally want to be inside of America, but do not want to be an American citizen.
Okay.
That's
fucked up. I get it.
That is fucked up. That's why I said, then get the fuck out of America. If you are not an American citizen, which they claim that they are not a citizen of the United States.
Yeah, because the other file.
Because the United States is a for-profit entity and all bullshit.
The U.S. has its own. I mean, there's issues. That's what scares the shit out of me. Like I guess we were arguing 2 points simultaneously, and I apologize. We were on two different things at the same time. Because for
that's
me,
what I said. You started going off on like something else, and I'm like, that's not what I consider, or they consider themselves as sovereign citizens.
I guess why I enjoy the sovereign citizen kind of bullshittery that happens is that it's pushing back on the state's authority, and I think that's a problem that we are suffering right now, especially in the left-right swing that we live in.
There's a right and wrong way to push back on state authority. You have to work within the legal system, not pretend like that is just something outside of the realm, and you're going to operate outside of that legal system.
Well, we need to figure out how to get the... I don't know. We went way long. All right, I got to go.
Then go.
I'm about to pee my pants, actually. It's really the problem. I mean, you got something else? I'll continue.
No.
We went 2.5, man. 2:45.
All right.
I'm not trying to cut you off. I apologize.
No.
You're being all pouty. Don't be pouty.
I got nothing more specific.
Okay. The Olympics are on, everybody. Why are you listening to us? Go watch the Olympics. Get your NBC account up. Go watch some sob story about some girl who lost her dad this year who doesn't get to go to the Olympics or whatever. I'm being a dick. I'm sorry. I hate the fucking side story shit that drives you crazy. Like, just let me watch the sports. I don't want to hear everybody's fucking life story. It's stupid. Anyway, almost agreement at gmail.com. It's a good thing I know you're not listening anymore. Almostagreement.com is the website. Go there. I've got job descriptions. I've got cheat sheets. I've got all sorts of other shit. Favorite podcast provider. Check us out there. 5-star review. Please subscribe, like, share, do all those things. Help us get the word out about how stupid I am, especially when it gets late and I get drunk. I might edit a whole chunk of this show out. I don't know. Anyway, almost here, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a good night. I hate those stories, dude. I hate fucking trying to watch the Olympics.
Right, she picked the wrong fucking example to make up. Started here by these people that lost their dad.
No, it's not. It's not a wrong example.
How is it not a wrong example?